From the Smith Radio Studios, it's Carrie and Brian Smith. This is Smith Radio. You can tweet at Smith Radio, SMYTH Radio. And now, your host, Carrie and Brian Smith.
And did we do it right? There we go. Making sense of it all. Got to make sure that was right.
Okay, all right.
No, it's just in my head. It's what we hear. They can't hear that. Good. No, if this is the first time you've been tuning in, welcome. This is Smith Radio, Military Veteran Talk Radio. Back in the 90s, I was in the Air Force, and this is my cousin Carrie back in the 90s in the Marine Corps. We've been doing this for about 15 years, talking politics and ideas and theories, and doing a lot of
we invented our own version of political science.
Yes, for the most part. Yes, absolutely. So we give it to you straight, folks, exposing the fake news, giving you real news, explaining some of the folks that you might want to start following, whether it be, if you don't know Candace Owens, I mean, she's making big news, Mark Dice, Jack Posobiec, Cernovich, Charlie Kirk, just everybody around the horn. We'll talk about that throughout the show. And showing you some of the real news that really is out there. And then a lot of things like during the Kavanaugh hearing, there was a lot of great information coming out, but nobody knew about it because it was Kavanaugh all day long.
Right.
Just insanity. And we are using a new board. I want to thank all our great Patreons at smithradio.com. Go to smithradio.com for any information. But thank you so much for our Patreons for the assistance and the help for our new show. We are not in currently. I want to correct that. Last week I had one of our listeners say, "Oh, how's the new show?" And I'm not finished with the showroom yet. And they're like, "No, you said you were on the show last week."
You know, we had to make our way to D.C. that one weekend that you were supposed to finish it. And I said, "Brian, you have to put that to the back burner because we're going to D.C."
Yes, and so I spent yesterday, all day yesterday with my daughter down there, and if you're in our private message meetup group.
Did you let her use the nail gun?
You got the picture? Yeah. I said, put up a picture of her mudding, taping and mud, doing the walls. I
would have given her the nail gun. She could probably do the electrical too.
Well, the only problem with the nail gun, it's the one with the gas and the cordless.
It's a fuel cell. It literally is a combustion chamber.
It's the most badass thing I've ever operated. I love it.
For those of you in the construction industry, it's the pass load, the orange one.
Yes, the orange pass load. Yeah. I swear by it. I think it's the greatest thing ever invented.
Right.
But anyway, so with that ado, real quick, we do have a special guest slated to come on. We don't have a confirmation, so you're going to have to be patient with us to see how that works out.
Yeah, hopefully he if he's listening right now, 5:30, man, call in. So, we got it all set up for him, but he's been unbelievably busy the past 2 weeks, which is when we first started talking about having him on, is Will Johnson, and he has been rubbing elbows with
he's in the White House, wasn't he?
Yeah, with Donald Trump and doing all that kind of stuff, which is great. So hopefully we'll have him in between his extremely busy schedule.
Right. And so today we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're definitely going to talk about the election coming up here, midterms, November 6th. Spoiler alert. I'm just give you a heads up. Spoiler alert. Republicans win.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, I'm just
all letting you know. Every single one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be...
The prediction is Brian Smith calls all Republicans winners.
It's going to be a double nightmare for the Democrats because they're really going to see what us voters are really made of.
Yeah, and I was on some phone calls this week where people were saying, well, what does it mean to have a red wave? Or what does it mean to have a blue wave? And I proceeded to explain to this person that it depends on how they're able to spin it. So, for instance, the Democrats are going to try to say that they had a victory on almost any scenario outside of a red tsunami. So, for instance, if they don't lose any, let's say they gain the House but don't gain the Senate, they're going to say, "Oh, that's the blue wave. We, huge change here. We have a new Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi," which, by the way, that's how it will go down.
But spoiler alert: Republicans win.
Right.
So this is hypothetical.
Right, hypothetical. So just to let you know, if you don't go out there and vote, so we all know to go out there and vote. But it's more than that. I think you need to drag out your neighbors and that kind of thing. You definitely need to. Ooh, I don't know what that was all about. Yeah. So anyway, definitely want to do more than just show up to the polls. Obviously, that's minimum threshold. The bar is set so low that you just need to show up. Wow, we need to figure that out.
And I've been saying, and I've been scoping for the past couple of weeks, just talk to your friends that voted for Trump. Everybody that you know that liked Trump or that was cool with Trump, just call them. Touch base with them, see how they're doing. Say, hey, I just want to call you, see how you're doing. Election coming up this Tuesday. I was told by Smith Radio, Military Veteran Talk Radio, I was told by Smith Radio to call you.
Okay.
I'm just saying, make sure you're going to vote Tuesday, right? That's all. Just say Smith Radio told me to call.
And drag out your friends. Make sure that anybody that you know that is likes Trump or has been even as little as indifferent about it, drag them out because everybody wants to be a part of the winning team.
Yes.
So they're going to vote red down the line. By the way, this may be too late for some people, but I should say never. But I've been asked to stand at my polling place for the duration.
I was
with
asked
a stack.
I was asked, and I had to tell him. I said, "Man, I texted him back. We were going back and forth text real quick. And I texted him back, and I said, "Oh, I read your message. I don't know if I could do all day."
Right, because it doesn't work out for you. Me, it just so happens I can make myself available even if it's tough for me. When push comes to shove, I can, and I will because it's that important. So I'm going to sit there and hand every single person that walks by me one of those papers that enables you to follow, write down, and vote red from the top to bottom, which is important because
a little cheat sheet to kind of give you a heads up, help you out.
And it's a good thing because I will tell you there are a lot of judges, pretty much all local judges will not put R or D next to their name. And if you don't know them personally, it's kind of like, I've heard of both these guys, but I can't remember which one's a D, which one's an R. And part of being a part of a red wave is just everything. Republican down the line, they've got to win everything.
And Mark Dice even made the comment. He said that this is like tax season. Just treat it like tax season. I know you don't like it. You don't like to do it, but you got to. And imagine, I'm just going to add this in there. Imagine this is tax season where you actually get a sizable return. Which might make you want to go ahead and do your taxes early, like voting early.
Okay.
But it's too late for that. All the early voting is over now. But Tuesday, got to be in there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I got all kinds of information about what's gone down this past week with different candidates and different scandals that are breaking out all over the place. Project Veritas and James O'Keefe is at it again. He bagged two of them this week. Big names, folks, big names. We're also going to get into talking about the caravan that's coming up from the south. Honduras, which is an invasion.
For the most part.
Full-blown invasion.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about birthright citizenship. What's that mean and where'd that come from? And why did Abraham Lincoln create that after the Civil War? Or did he? We'll get into
Somebody did.
We'll get into all that, and we're also going to talk about what else has got going on. I guess in my opinion, the biggest news of the entire week, which will consume a lot of the time because it's such great news. And if you're talking to somebody and they're not sure about voting for Trump, apparently they live under a rock, but they might not be getting the real news. We've got winning big league news.
Okay.
Winning. You want to talk about this economy just rocking and rolling. And not only that, but there's some other things going on. Oh, real quick, this is a little quick blurb. I'm not going to get into it and talk about it much, but my mother asked me this week, Brian, is it fake news? The Kavanaugh accuser said that she lied. So I started digging into it. And I spent a couple minutes on it. Nothing comes up on the Google. It's like, all right, I forgot about it.
That sounds scandalous, actually.
You would think, right?
Because we know what the news is. Sounds a little bit scandalous.
And so I saw on my Twitter feed, one of the folks that I follow retweeted Washington Times, not the Washington Compost, the Washington Post, the Washington Times story. Kavanaugh, another accuser admits to fabricating a rape story.
Oh, boy.
So we got two.
Wow.
I mean, not that we're shocked that they lied. I'm a little surprised that the news came out.
Well, and it seems to, based on what I was reading, that they actually admit it. Do they not know what kind of trouble they're in for doing this? I mean, for real.
There's a lot of trouble. I mean, you could probably do some jail time for this one.
Well, yeah, because you go in front of Congress or whatnot, or it could just be a police report. Or
when you're obstructing Congress, obstruction of Congress, lying to Congress on the stand.
You're just not allowed to lie to them. You go under oath and you lie, you're looking at some real serious legal punishment.
Now, they can lie to you all they want. all day long, they can lie to you.
Right.
But you ain't allowed to lie back to them. You can't give it back. You got to.
Well,
anyways.
Yeah.
So something else, folks, this whole theme in the show that I really want to sink in for some of the folks that are a little bit nervous about what's going on in the political world or what's going on with America and America's future. I've been getting into the whole Trump prophecies. And if you get on the YouTube and you type in Trump prophecy and hit search, almost, for me, nothing comes up for Trump prophecy.
Okay.
I literally have to go to the Google and Google it for something to come up. So I'm just saying, a little shady. But I got the clip of the firefighter that had a vision, if you will. And now there's the full-blown movie, Trump prophecy, and it goes into great detail about Trump and claiming that Trump pretty much appointed or anointed by God to be the next guy that saves America. You know, Abraham Lincoln saved America for the first time. Now Donald Trump to save America for a second time, anointed by God. So if you're apprehensive about politics, if you're apprehensive and you're nervous about losing and we're winning so much and we're winning, well, folks, I got some good news for you. You can rest assured, take this one to the bank. The prophecy about Trump isn't one guy. There's other prophecies. There's other people. Bill Still, how would you describe Bill Still?
I would put him as the main anchor, like the Tom Brokaw type of person who just tells you the news as he gets it. He's not. I wouldn't even consider him a pundit, even though occasionally he throws in his opinion. But he's like an anchor. But it's one of the few real news people out there who just gives it to you straight up, just the facts, and doesn't throw in the punditry, which there's nothing wrong with that because that's what we do. Right. We do a lot of punditry. We'll throw out, whatever news is being reported and then tell you what it means because sometimes it can be confusing. But I would say that he's a good anchor man for real news. Like
unemotional. He doesn't play on people's emotions.
Right. I mean, he delivers it like your Tom Brokaw, like a just monotone, whatever.
Well, I slipped down the rabbit hole of the Trump prophecies, and I got a couple of clips to show you. And spoiler alert, Bill Still got a vision.
He got a vision. Okay.
Which is kind of...
Him and his wife...
I find that strange.
Him and his wife have gone down the road. They're very, very religious Christians, and sometimes they wear it on their sleeve, and they will just speak about it, and which is great, but... That would be a big difference between them and your historical anchorman type personality like your Tom Brokaw's, because they would stay 100% secular. So I will give them that they do kind of wear that on their sleeve, which is a little different. And maybe for most people listening, that's a refreshing change, right? It's something that America needs sorely, right? So.
Right. So now this is a little bit of a clip. It's a few minutes long, but it's very important that you hear this. And check the movie out, the new movie that's coming out, Trump Prophecies. And it's not just this one guy. I'm now hearing it from multiple people having multiple experiences. And when I say people, these are credible individuals that I absolutely trust that I would not, I really trust these folks. So check this out. This is the Trump Prophecies, and that and what is going on in our political world. This is from CBN News, Christian Broadcast News Network, or Christian Network.
Like other people who were running with him.
In April of 2011, retired firefighter Mark Taylor was watching the news when Donald Trump came on the screen.
I didn't know a lot about Donald Trump. I just knew he was a very powerful businessman, built this empire. I knew he was toying with the idea of running for president at the time. You know, most people thought it was a joke.
Well, he's kind of a comic book figure. I mean, he's a show-off.
He's a sideshow who threatens to swallow the Republican Party.
So I'm listening to him on an interview, and all of a sudden I just heard the voice of the Lord say, "You're hearing the voice of a president."
Mark went into his office, got out a pen and paper, and started to write what he says the Holy Spirit told him.
You know, he was saying that basically that America was going to prosper like never before. Israel and America, the ties between the two countries would be stronger than ever before. The dollar would be the strongest it was ever been.
The economy is booming under this president.
We're up 254 points, 21,000 on the Dow.
It was very detailed as far as what God was showing me.
And Mark, this was 2011.
This was 2011.
Before he'd ever announced.
Before he ever announced.
At the time, Mark suffered from an illness, making him so lethargic he had to stay home. That's when he sought help from well-known Christian physician Dr. Don Colbert. During one visit, Taylor shared the prophecy with Dr. Colbert and his wife Mary.
Well, as I read this prophecy, I saw the Father's rhythm throughout the whole prophecy, and I recognized the rhythm. You know, our frequency, you could call it, because God has his own frequency. I literally collapsed into a chair because I was reading it standing, and I just collapsed in the chair and stood there looking at it in shock, thinking, Donald Trump is going to be our next president?
Mary knew if the prophecy were to come true, it would take a lot of prayer.
As I began getting the prophecy in the hands of major leaders across the country, the body of Christ, people that I knew that were influencers within their church, what I did is I started a prayer chain, 15 minutes a day, started on Labor Day. The Lord instructed me to do it on Labor Day. He says, this is going to be a labor of love.
Taylor originally thought the prophecy would happen during the 2012 presidential election, but it was not to be.
Thought I'd missed it. I truly missed it.
Then, on June 16th, 2015,
I am officially running for President of the United States.
Mark's prophetic word suddenly didn't seem so far-fetched. Still, most people didn't take the billionaire businessman seriously.
He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe.
Donald, adults learn not to interrupt you.
As the race for the White House grew heated and ugly at times, Colbert had moments of doubt and called on God for confirmation. She says he told her to watch the upcoming Belmont Stakes in June of 2016, where the horse named Creator beat Destin by a hair.
It was Creator and Destin right on the wire.
The headlines, CNN headlines, Creator wins by a photo finish. I sat back in my chair, Wendy, and I just, God, you're really going to do this.
The horse's name was Creator.
Creator.
And God's the creator.
He's the creator. I win.
When election night finally rolled around, Trump's win astounded the most experienced political journalists.
Well, my crystal ball has been shattered into atoms here because I predicted the exact opposite of what happened.
Taylor says God used Trump to stop an anti-Christian agenda that was taking hold of America.
The enemy's timeline has been denied by the Most High God, and it's through Donald Trump. A lot of this is being denied right now. And what God is saying right now is no, it's not time right now, because there's many, many things that God wants to accomplish on the earth right now.
But Taylor says there's one part of the prophecy that hasn't come to pass yet, regarding the news media.
Fake stories are being reported. A lot of bad things are being reported that aren't true.
So the news media would be captivated by him, and they would even begin to agree with him. That's the only line in a prophecy that hasn't come to pass yet. So we have to ask ourselves, what's fixing to happen to make the mainstream news media to begin to agree with him?
What is fixing to happen?
God's going to clean out the news media. God is looking for his people right now, his millionaires and his billionaires, basically, to come in and start investing in these places and buying them out, taking over. God's going to rebuild them and restore them because there's no spirit of truth in them right now. And that's what God's going to restore.
Taylor believes Trump's victory is just the beginning. The fireman prophet also predicts the church will thrive, and America will see a great move of God.
The army of God will have victory after victory after victory. And I love what President Trump always says. He says, you're going to get sick and tired of winning if there is such a thing. And that's going to be the same way for the army of God. It's going to be victory after victory after victory.
Will it be an 8-year presidency?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we will.
You're sure about that?
Yeah, I'm sure about that, because I think what's going to happen is that when people see the good that the country's coming into right now, the prosperity, the jobs, the economy, whatever the case may be, there's going to be no doubt he's going to sail right in for a second term.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
There it goes. Okay, so just that wrapped up in a nutshell. At the very end, he said the only thing that hasn't come to fruition, if you will, is that the news media would start to agree with Donald Trump. And what I think that they don't quite understand is that the news media is, well, not the mainstream media, but there's these new outlets that we have now. Mm-hmm. We have Smith Radio. We've got dozens and dozens across the nation. These smaller outlets, these independent outlets coming out already talking about real news and having the spirit of truth in their shows. Obviously, this is more of a commentary than it is a news outlet, but still, I honestly believe, my opinion, I think there'll be new news media outlets that will replace the garbage, soulless CNN, MSNBC, ABC.
It'll happen eventually. It's one of those things where it's going to take a generation to happen, because you can't, I shouldn't say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because, that's just a bad attitude, but it is an old saying that people kind of understand when you say it. And there's going to be people that are going to be have to be drug away kicking and screaming from it, and they just won't. They won't ever. And my grandmother, who, God rest her soul, she died in 2009. She would wake up in the morning, and on top of her refrigerator, she had a big wooden console radio.
Yes!
And she would click that thing on, and that was her entertainment for the day. And she did that all the way up until the day she died, probably, 2009. And so, people have their forms of getting information or entertainment or whatever. And, I have a sibling who still listens to CDs. And I'm talking about the ones that he burned.
What?
Oh, yeah. He listens to burned CDs. And, Brian, you should know, when you go over to his house, the music you're listening to,
I thought
there's CDs that he burned. No, I know what you're thinking. That he downloaded.
I thought
files.
It was all MP3s,
no,
streaming
no.
MP.
No, he pulls out the old burn. And I'm just saying that most people have trouble keeping with the times. I mean, if you're not one of them, you might think I'm crazy.
Well, and
it's true.
There's folks that I talk to, Gen Xers that are our age, that they refuse to not do Twitter. Do not do Facebook. I know a lot of Gen Xers that just didn't.
By the way,
we would have been that way too.
Well, I'm just telling you,
we would have been
the sibling that listens to burn CDs.
He's not on.
No, he joined Facebook 2 months ago.
No way!
For the first time ever.
Oh my goodness!
But that wasn't technology related. That was something else.
Okay.
But he is old school like that,
Right. So let's take this back a little bit, folks. Let's go back to like we're talking 2011, where he had this prophecy. 2011 was a little rough. 2012 was very difficult for us because it was the re-election of a president who we factually know, flawed, so wretchedly flawed, beyond belief. We know this. Corrupt beyond belief. That he won his re-election, Barack Hussein Obama. That was tough for us. I remember the night in the apartment I had. You and I standing there watching the election. I still have that memory burned, seared.
You know where I was? I was at a some sort of a seminar where Kelly Bangert was talking. It was a bunch of people there, and I didn't realize how conservative that group was until we came out of the seminar. It was like a speech, basically. Somebody giving a speech. And there was like a wall of a bunch of different TVs, and they had all the different channels on, and they were all calling it for Barack Obama. It was 2008, And
I'm fast forwarding to 2012.
Oh, well, that was with Romney.
Right.
That was kind of like, I kind of felt the writing on the wall with that. I was really hoping, but, he threw it away after the first debate. But in 2008, it was like people were really sad and upset. And I didn't realize how many people were Republicans or conservative that I was with. But they were pretty, it was a very sad night.
Yeah, no, it's very unfortunate. So then let's move past that. 2012, we were pretty. I mean, we knew when John Boehner said impeachment's off the table. We started to see the Republicans cave, and none of them wanted to be the first white guy to remove the first black guy from office, because those guys are racist up there on the Hill, most of them. So get into 2013. Carrie and I are I'm here in Cincinnati, and Carrie and I are talking daily, hour to hour, all the time about politics and everything going on. And we said, we got to do something about this. And we started Smith Radio in 2014.
Okay.
2013, 2014, right around in there. So I got the feel for that when I'm going down the Trump prophecies, and I'm starting to see these prophets talk about what's to come. I came across a guy. His name's, you might know him. His name's Kim Clement, and he does a lot of music and a lot of shows. So it's a little flashy, which I understand it can be a little weird for folks that are real conservative, but he did a prophecy in 2014.
Okay.
And I started thinking about 2014 and the time that we began this show. And his prophecy was in stark contrast to us and our show. Because why did we start doing the show?
Because we felt like we were losing the country.
We had to document the demise of America.
Trying to wake people. I had a little bit more of an optimistic take on it. I felt like there was maybe a chance. Well, you know what it was? If we're going to go down, we're going to go down kicking and screaming.
Yes,
we're not going to just sit there. I don't want to get too graphic, but...
What about when your dad said, "No, man, we're over the event horizon. There ain't no pulling this thing back."
He said that we had fallen over the cliff. We're just on our way down. We're not dead yet because we haven't hit the ground yet.
Yes.
So that was a pretty
we're
grim.
In free fall.
Yeah.
We're in free fall.
He was pretty much saying that there is no surviving this. No. So was he ever wrong? Wow.
But I'm glad. But it was difficult to see that because I was under the impression that we were documenting all the bad things, the conspiracy theories that started to turn out to be true, the bad things that started to come out to be true, whether it be the IRS and Lois Lerner, whether it be Fast and Furious and Eric Holder, whether it be Benghazi and Hillary Clinton. I mean, look at all these scandals and just wretched piles of cash, pallets and pallets of cash to Iran and the Iran deal. They had to call it a deal because it wouldn't have been ratified by Congress as a treaty.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm just saying.
So bad.
Yeah, so I'm trying to take everybody back to that time.
Why?
Because I need you to understand where we came from. I need you to understand where it was and what caused Trump.
So you're saying that there's a possibility that we need to watch out for it, that this prosperity and awesomeness that we are dealing with right now may be possibly taken for granted?
It will be eventually. Okay. And if you know anything about the Bible and you know anything about the Jewish community or the Jews in the Bible, they begged for God to help them. God would give them something and help them. And then they would complain about what they got. And then it ebbs and flows, the complaining and the getting and the giving and the... Anyway, so it's just human nature. It's what we do. When we got it so good, a lot of times we take it for granted. So I'm just trying to take you back to 2014.
I can tell you this. This is something that people should remember this. Right before pretty much the entire year leading up to Donald Trump getting elected, people may forget this, but you'll remember quickly when I remind you. The thing that people were thinking is he has no experience, never been a politician. We don't know if he's going to be able to do this because of his lack of experience, but we're in such a bad position right now as a country that were willing to take this risk. And the reason it's so easy to forget that is because Donald Trump has turned into the greatest president in our entire lifetimes. And it's so easy to forget what we were actually thinking leading up to actually pulling the lever for him. And here's why I think that this is good news. To tell you this story will be great news for you. And this is why. Because that was the thing holding back a total landslide for Donald Trump, is that there were so many people that were like, gosh, we're going to vote for a guy that has no political experience. He's not a politician. He's never been a politician. He's never held office.
We're not sure that he's Christian. I mean, does he even go to? And I don't even think he went to church.
There were people saying he's a Democrat in disguise. Right. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Right. We can't trust him.
He was pro-abortion, Kerry.
Oh, and all of his promises back in 2016 were, yeah, sure, he could promise this stuff, but number one, he doesn't have a magic wand. And hey, a real president with real political experience is telling us that he's not going to be able to do this stuff because he doesn't have a magic wand.
And who did have a magic? No, who has, when I say experience, who has a historical background of knowing the political system? I mean, you could go anybody on the Republican Party. Most of them have been lifelong career politicians.
We call them establishment.
Yes,
establishment.
Even your Ted Cruz. I mean, if nothing else, Ted Cruz was obviously second in choice, but he's a career guy. Establishment.
Right. And with the case of Obama, a lot of people that were paying close attention to politics all the way back to 2008 would say, well, Kerry, Obama had very little experience. He was kind of given the seat in the Senate, and then he was only there for 4 years. And during that time, he intentionally avoided actually doing the job that you were sent there to do, like voting. It was mostly voting present,
right?
So that he couldn't be. So he really had no experience. However, at the time, he had 8 years of experience as president of the United States. So people at that point were kind of like, well, he's an 8-year experienced president. So there was that. And he was saying, what is he going to do? I don't think he has any plan, and he doesn't have a magic wand. So that's what we were being told. Now here we're fast forward 2 more years after he wins the election. And nobody's thinking this stuff. Nobody's thinking, yeah, well, what is he going to do? Or, will he be able to keep his promises? Will he be able to make the economy great? Will he be able to improve employment? Will he be able to increase wages? Will he actually be able to talk to leaders of other countries and fix all these horrible deals that have been done by all these terrible presidents all these past decades?
And I got a new 3-minute clip that I'll play later on the end of the world. Kerry, breaking news. It's the end of the world.
Okay, we got end of the world coming. And what are you saying? Thanks to Donald Trump?
Yes, he's crushing it. He's destroying the economy. He's destroying America. Is this end? This is the end of the world. Is this his end? He is done. This president is finished. This president's going to resign. This president's going to be, just on and on and on. So back to 2014.
Okay.
I was looking like there was no hope.
Yeah. I felt the same way.
I mean, what politician did we know was on the radar that would have been able to handle the media? I mean, look what they did to Bush. Look what they did to Bush.
Handling the media was not an option.
No.
That was not an option. So we were thinking, well, maybe somebody can just be strong and hold to, maybe kind of move the needle in the direction of the Constitution a little bit.
They could thread the needle and wave, bob and weave.
Yeah, but mainly, here's the funny thing, and we have friends that have been following us for a long time, that there's a big debate on what exactly is a conservative and is it good. There's people that have been arguing to us that conservatism is bad because this is my interpretation, my definition of conservatism, and it's been a big failure for us. But I remember thinking, well, maybe if we can get a real conservative, not just some George W. Bush or any Bush for that matter, or any kind of establishment guy who's been milquetoast, terrible.
I mean, people were throwing out Ted Cruz because he had
and that's what I was thinking.
Had it memorized.
Yeah, I remember.
He had the Constitution and Declaration of Independence memorized.
Like your Rand Paul types, your Ted Cruz types. It's like, okay, these guys are a little bit more edgy, a little bit more Tea Party type. I was actually thinking
Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows.
Oh, yeah, he was totally off the radar. That's another thing people need to realize. Anytime I mention Jim Jordan, and I mentioned him a lot, everybody's like,
who?
Jim who? Jordan. He's just now become kind of a more nationally known and hopefully superstar type person.
Oh, yeah.
Up until like 6 months to a year into Donald Trump's presidency. And let me prove my point. When the debate was after Donald Trump won the primary, what was the big discussion? Who's he going to pick to be VP? And I remember thinking, pick Jordan, pick Jim Jordan, please pick Jim Jordan. And everybody's like, I don't think he's known enough.
Well, here's the thing, though. Donald Trump, being the leader that he is, would pick someone who would be the yin and the yang.
Okay.
It would be almost the opposite of him, but yet pick up the qualities that he may lack, if you will.
Right. Plus, there's a huge constituency that have been very critical of Trump, that bringing somebody like a Mike Pence on would say, well, okay, we can agree to that. So you have your Rand Paul types, your very, very conservative type people, even establishment, some people would argue, that as soon as you say Pence, they're like, oh, I'm kind of surprised that he would pick. I'm surprised he didn't pick Hillary Clinton as his running mate. You know, that's the kind of argument they were making.
Well, Pence married for decades and decades and decades, married to the same woman, a Christian, conservative, Christian values. His kids have done well. I mean, just an all around. I mean, I don't know if he has a son or anything, but it would be like his kids would be like the kids you'd want your daughter to date. You know, I mean, just that much, that high a level of respect that I have for Mike Pence. But he was definitely the yin to Donald Trump's yang.
Right.
All these things that have come to fruition, none of it is an accident. None of it is accidental. I am convinced now. I am truly convinced.
Do you think that it was meant for Reince Priebus to be the
the
White House chief of staff?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that guy was such a mole.
Had to get rid of that one. So Trump had to go through all the lists. You got to understand, he doesn't realize, at least looking back, I don't know if anyone could realize how bad it really was and how many people of your own party wanted your head on a skewer.
Right. We were just kind of like floating through and just saying, I just hope I live a long life, stay out of the gulag, and just whatever. Like I was at that, like I was so disappointed in what America had turned into, considering what it was conceived, the philosophy it was conceived upon. And it was just such a big disappointment. And it looks like under Trump, we're able to get back to that. I think it was Ali who said that. He's at Ali on Twitter for those of you living under a rock. He said that we're not going to have another Donald Trump after 8 years, but we don't need another Donald Trump. We need somebody in there that's just going to be able to maintain the transformation, or I should say the restoration back to what America was supposed to be based on our founding, based on the founders. We just need somebody to be able to maintain that. And I kind of agree with that. I was getting worried about not having a Donald Trump after he's gone because there is nobody waiting in the wings whatsoever. It won't happen, I don't think, for the rest of my lifetime that we'll have anybody anywhere near like Trump. However, if Trump's able to do what he wants to do, I think we'll have what we need without Donald Trump after 8 years. I think we'll be fine as long as we have somebody that's willing to maintain that. And how do we enable Trump to be able to get what he wants, which is what we want, and that is to give the red wave. The red wave must happen.
Down.
Because we do have co-equal branches of government. They're separate, and they have balance of power. We got checks and balances. And so Donald Trump knows he's not a dictator, and he knows that. He knows what his role is. He'll tell you, he'll say, I ran on a wall. I won a border wall. I want to secure the country, but I can't do that. That's up to Congress. So when we get the supermajority that we'll get with the red wave, we will then enable the Congress to be able to write the laws that Donald Trump will sign and get everything done, funded and everything like that to get the wall. And that's just one of many, many, many things that I'm sure that we're going to have done by 8 years. But we need you guys to get out there and vote and make this red wave happen so that we can enact the things that our founders envisioned.
So some of the prophets that are out there, and I believe 100% that this is an act of God, because there's almost no possible way that Donald Trump would have won and things would have been getting as good as they are so quickly without literally an act of God. So I believe that God's behind this.
Divine intervention.
Divine intervention. However, there's some prophets out there, and when I say prophets, I mean they're self-appointed. I mean, they just say I'm a prophet.
Just like a Republican, always talking about prophets.
Really? Oh, gotta get me some prophets in my pocket.
Right.
But there's some of them out there that deal with numbers and stuff, and that gets a little out of my realm and my comfortable zone.
You mean getting into like conspiratorial rabbit holes and like Jim Carrey's 23, where everything means something?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Well, there's one that before the election, before Donald Trump even was run up, it's just him and Hillary. Somebody came out with the 777, meaning if there's 1 7, that's a good thing. If there's 2 7s, that's pretty much earth-shattering. If there's 3 7s, then that's a mind-blowing, universal stuff. So they were saying that 777, meaning the year that Donald Trump gets elected, is the 5,777 year in the Jewish calendar.
Okay.
Their New Year's in October, which the election was in November, which turned to 5777. Somebody else said the day that Donald Trump assumes office, which was January 21st, 2017, that Donald Trump was 70 years old.
True.
7 months and 7 days.
No. Did you look it up?
Do the math. It does. It works out. It worked. I saw that during the election.
Because
I was like,
I tend to not buy into that kind of stuff at all.
Because you're that mathematician numbers guy that I would go to for a quick answer.
Well, the thing about like conspiracy theorists and stuff like that, they will. There's always a way to do math in order to find patterns that you then can assign meaning to. Okay, and that's why I got you here. I need you to help me out with, he's 70 years old, 7 months and 7 days on January 21st, 2017. Well, I mean, 17 isn't not 7.
Well, there's a 7 in there.
Oh,
that makes for 4 sevens.
See, that's the kind of stuff that triggers me.
That's 4 of a kind. I win.
There's a 7 in 17. Oh my God.
I got 4 of a kind, Kerry.
So if you had 17 rocks in front of you, would you be able to look at that and say, there's a 7 in there? But there's 17 rocks.
If the 17 rocks were lined up in the shape of a 7, that's 2 sevens.
Oh boy. Oh, see.
I'm sorry, folks. I don't want to get too silly about it. But there are some that are out there doing this. And there are also some folks that are relating Donald Trump's presidency to Cyrus the Great.
Okay.
Cyrus the Great. Where was it? Cyrus the Great, the conqueror who founded the Archimedean Empire, centered on Persia and stretching from sea eastward. Anyways, here's the thing. Cyrus was a big conqueror. He'd go out and conquer, and he conquered Babylonians, and he freed the Jews and freed the slaves. Here's the thing about Cyrus. Cyrus didn't know much about God, or didn't believe much about God. But what had happened is that everything in Cyrus's life that happened to him led up to the moment to where he became Cyrus the Great, the conqueror, the emperor Cyrus. And at that time, assuming the position, he came to know God, came to fear God. And in that sense, people are saying that everything in Donald Trump's life, and you got to look back at it, they might have scrubbed them, but when I say some, there's like 1 or 2. documentaries on Donald Trump's life that are good, that really explain who he is, where he came from, and how it came about. But everything in Donald Trump's life has led him up to this singular moment in his life.
Oh, I definitely agree with that 100%. I think, and this is the reason why there's people who have some similar attributes to Donald Trump. They could be a billionaire, they could be a very successful business person and amass that on their own or whatnot. And so you look at it and you say, oh, there's a lot of similarities. Or they could be famous. A good example would be like Mark Cuban. Here's a guy who's a self-made billionaire who's also famous enough to where if you just mention his name, people will say, oh, yeah, I've heard of him. Or, oh, I know exactly who that is. He's got the Shark Tank. He's even got a reality show. So people are like, wow, all these similar attributes. He could do what Donald Trump did and also be a great president. But the thing is you have to understand Enlightenment philosophy and our government in general, just basic civics, to recognize the nuances that come out of Donald Trump himself. And you see it all the time. When somebody, and I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I'm kind of new to this. I'm pretty much, I'm not an expert yet, but I'm definitely a well-versed student in Enlightenment philosophy. However, if you go back 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, for me, I would be like, I don't know anything about Enlightenment philosophy. If you'd said, who's John Locke? I would have been like, I have no clue. Who's Charles Montesquieu? I have no idea. Who inspired our founders in our founding documents? I would have been like, well, I guess they just dreamt it up themselves. And this is what a vast majority of people know. And when you learn all this stuff like I have, and you listen to Donald Trump say certain things, like I've never heard a presidential candidate say, well, this is the things that I want done. And when asked how he's going to do that, he actually says, I'm going to work with Congress to do that. I've never heard that out of a presidential candidate ever. Right. They're usually like, well, I'm going to make this happen because I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You're not a dictator. And if you know anything about how our Constitution works and the separation of powers and the basic responsibilities as written in the different articles of the Constitution, you should know that that's not how it works. So Donald Trump, and some people say, what? That's just a basic civics thing that he knew that and others didn't. That doesn't mean that if he didn't know that he would magically be able to do that. But here's the thing. By him knowing that already, he knows first, right out of the gate, that he doesn't try to be a dictator. Right. He goes right to Congress and starts negotiating with them. When you got somebody like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who they don't even know this stuff. They get into office and they're like, okay, well, now that I'm king of America, let's start writing executive orders. And they don't even go to the first logical step, which is let's start talking with congressmen about making these laws happen. Donald Trump knew from day one that that's what he needed to do, which is why he's so successful right now.
And what's amazing is the breadth of knowledge that Donald Trump has across the board, whether it be about wars, whether it be about historical.
Oh, that's another thing. Yeah.
I'm telling you,
yep.
He comes up with these things, and the media thinks they've got him in a lie, or they got him in something.
Right.
Because the media doesn't know these things.
It's amazing how good he is at all the most important things that make a great president. So it's not just that he understands how our government works better than any other previous president that I've ever seen. Maybe barring Ronald Reagan, because I've listened to a lot of his speeches and just the stuff that he talks about, and I could tell that he understands our government. But then you got the way he understood our media. Now, some would argue, well, Ronald Reagan comes from Hollywood.
Right.
And so he was able to do that too. And maybe he was on par or better, who knows, than Donald Trump. But you got Donald Trump with the experience with The Apprentice.
Yeah.
So he kind of knew how that mass media stuff worked. But then I forgot about, he's like a student of past leaders. He talks about Ulysses S. Grant. He even talks about Robert E. Lee. He talks about all these generals from the past, and he knew what made them great. Patton.
He's like, I don't care if he was a drunk. I just know I need 10 more of those guys.
Yeah. So, some of the speeches that he gave about them not only shows that he knew the history of them, but he knew why their shortcomings didn't prevent them from being the great person they did, which is what Donald Trump needed to have the confidence to say, you know what? I'm going to be president. I'm going to win the presidency, and I'm going to be a great president despite my shortcomings.
Character is king. And some of you libs out there might be triggered when I say that about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's character is king. Literally, it is everything. And why I say that is because when the cameras are off and the doors are closed, Donald Trump will do the right thing.
Right.
Not Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Not Hillary Clinton. When ain't nobody looking, Hillary Clinton starts dropping the N-word and making fun of people and ridiculing her own followers that they're sheeple. Literally, yeah. She said that to what's his face that hung out with Bill Clinton and wrote books about him and
it was Dick Morris.
Yeah, Dick Morris said that she said it to him in a couple of company how the Democrat voters are sheeple. Literally, they're so easy to get to do whatever we need them to do.
Wow.
I mean, character is king. And if you, Brian, well, what about the women and stuff like that? That's a human flaw. I'm just saying, us men, we flawed when it comes to y'all women. We did. Well, you gave us the apple and we bit that. And from then on, it went down.
Yeah.
But, I'm just saying.
I've already figured out what my excuse is going to be if I ever run for office and they dig into my past and say, oh, what's all this about? You got this person saying you did this wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, look, I am a true walk-away case. And it goes all the way back to when I was in my youth and I was just learning about life from wherever it was coming at me from. And in most cases, you're talking about Hollywood, TV, movies, comedians, music.
Department of Education.
Well, and that's part of it. Department of Education kind of supports what we're getting from mainstream media. And here's the thing. I was told that the liberal indoctrination, and I'm not just talking about Department of Education, I'm talking all of it. The music that was coming out at the time, the TV shows that were out at the time, the movies that were coming out, just the whole thing across the spectrum. I was told that this is the way life is. This is the way you're supposed to act. And you know what was really popular in the late 80s? Comedians.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like everybody was a stand-up comic, right? And some of those...
Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy Raw. And then... there's a whole bunch. Sam Kinison.
Seinfeld came out of that, too. He was doing stand-up comedy back then.
Richard Pryor was still in his...
Richard
Pryor was
he started
big.
in the 70s. He was kind of like the gatekeeper or whatever that just kind of opened that all up. So it was one of those things where stand-up comedy would come on every weekend on like HBO and stuff. And the stuff they were talking about, these were raging libs. And as a young 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, all that my entire teenage years, I was learning about what was correct in life, like what I need to learn from listening to these people. And it wasn't until I was introduced to conservatism when I was in my early 20s, actually mid-20s, where I was kind of like, you know what? This might be a better way of living life. And so all the stuff that I was doing in those young liberal years, I look back at it, I'm appalled by it. And there may be people in my past that would say, you know, Kerry would make a horrible politician because when I knew him, this is what he did and this is what he said. And I would have to say, you're right. And guess what? I feel awful about that. And I wish that I was not taught that this is the right way of life. I mean, there's one of my favorite albums that I had was Dr. Dre The Chronic, and it taught about how women were objects that were never to be respected ever. And under any circumstance, you were never to respect. You were actually the correct way to deal with women was to openly, in front of everybody else, disrespect them as blatantly, as flamboyantly as possible in front of all your friends, and then everybody high five and ha ha. And it was so bad that even the girls that were around at that time would laugh along with you because they knew they were supposed to be disrespected because they listened to the same crap too.
So I give out a shout out to all the ladies.
Yeah,
I didn't know no better.
I didn't know no better. And I'm not blaming them, and which is why I would take responsibility by apologizing.
Right, it's my fault.
Yeah,
it's my fault.
So if I ever run for higher office of any kind, where there would be a nationwide search for all the people that I did wrong, I mean, I would own up to it and say, listen. And by the way, it's not just me. If there are liberal young men and boys, because it really was indoctrinated into me when I was in my most vulnerable years. There are 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys today who are listening to liberals, who are, I'm talking the leaders, the ones that are considered leaders, your actors and actresses and rappers and whatnot, and they're all liberals and they're all telling you how the right way to live life is. Guess what? These people are going to be driven because they're just taught, they don't know any better,
right,
into behaving in ways that's going to really come back and haunt them in the future.
Right. So that's why we got to keep doing what we're doing. And again, I was talking to you about that there are people now that are comparing the life of Cyrus the Great. And I got the right clip, the quote here. According to the Bible, Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, was the monarch under whom the Babylonian captivity ended. In the first year of his reign, he was prompted by God to decree that the temple in Jerusalem should be rebuilt and that such Jews as cared to might return to their land for this purpose. So there was a connection with Cyrus the Great and a connection with the Jews and a connection with Jerusalem, Israel. Donald Trump, this is the prophets from past. Before Trump said he was going to run, they're already saying that God has told them that Trump is pro-Israel, and now we know, or they're saying that the president that is going to be anointed will be pro-Israel, will be this, will be that, and protect and help protect Israel, and great relations. And what have we seen? I mean, I'm just saying, what have we seen Donald Trump do?
Oh, I mean, everybody who's paying attention is thinking and speaking with any kind of intellectual honesty would have to admit that this is the most pro-Israel, pro-Jewish president we've ever had. When
we were at the Eagle Council meeting, they said that Donald Trump is the most pro-life president we have ever had.
Right. Oh, absolutely. These are people who have been the Eagle Council in St. Louis, or the Gateway Eagles in St. Louis, and I think they're spread out around that area, but they're centered in St. Louis. They were founded, was it 50 years ago or something, on a pro-life message. That's all. That is their number one issue, is pro-life. They've been around forever, and they come out on stage and they say, we've been doing this for years, and we're so excited about Donald Trump because he's our most pro-life president we've ever had.
And when all us whippersnappers, all us young kids, when we showed up, they was all shocked. They had no idea. Yeah, that was kind of
funny, yeah.
I said, there's a new
who are you guys? You guys seem like, this is pretty awesome. We've never had so many young kids.
And I'm here to tell you, that's prophesied as well.
Right.
The youth, the young kids coming out as conservative, has been prophesied as well.
Interesting.
That the kids will rise, the young will rise up and take up the torch to take that next step and move on. It was exciting to be around those folks. It's exciting to be around some of these other folks. And moving forward, I scoped about it this week. These organizations that are popping up, whether it be Blexit, whether it be some of the groups that we're involved with, there is a new movement of organizations to push the ideology of conservatism. What it can Turning
Point USA, right, with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens.
Right, and
okay.
New Right Network.
Yep, New Right Network.
I'm just saying, all these organizations that are coming out, they are doing what the Eagle Council has been doing for decades, half a century. And while we were there, they even said that at one point in time, the Republican Party was changing the platform in the 70s, some of the 70s, changing the platform to being pro-choice. And the Eagle Council had so much influence that they stopped that from happening.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because I do feel like as a politician, especially somebody's like lifelong, they I think they get away from the sentiment of the people on the ground.
When you're living in D.C., you wind up living in a bubble.
And so what ends up being the number one goal is whatever we got to do to get reelected, which is such a shame, because that's not really what the purpose of your office is. Your purpose isn't to get reelected. It's kind of along the same lines as the purpose, and this is from Rush Limbaugh, the purpose of a bureaucrat is to protect the bureaucracy. It's like, he's right, but that's not what the point was. But what ends up happening is when all you're caring about is getting reelected, things like pro-life, it's like, do I really need to keep that platform? Is that really going to make sure that I get to keep my power? And then you just get away from the principles, and it's just sad. So I'm glad to hear that the Gateway Eagles were able to steer the Republicans in the correct direction there.
And that's the organizations that we're involved in. And this December coming up, 6, 7, and 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, the American Priority Conference. This is going to be really awesome. I think the quickest, easiest way to describe this thing is a bona fide CPAC ripoff, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's hilarious, because we have been making fun of CPAC since the day Trump was basically a legitimate candidate.
This will be a Trump pack.
Yeah, and even way back in 2017 in February, when we were at the Bull Moose party or something like that, Mike Cernovich was talking about we need to have a true new media type of conservative, maybe conservative is the wrong word to use, but like a MAGA style CPAC. And I tweeted to him, hey, let's call it GPAC in honor of Guerrilla Mindset. And he was like, oh yes, that's perfect. So he loved that idea. But fast forward all this time, I guess nobody could really grab the bull by the horns and make this happen. And all of a sudden, we assemble this. When I say we, it's not me, but I know the people that have done it. Assembled this dream team of people that are just like the perfect combination of people to make this happen. And guess what? December 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're going to have a bona fide CPAC ripoff that's for MAGA people that are truly Trump supporters. And ripoffs, probably the bad word, that I just say it jokingly. Because it's going to be for real, like it's who's who.
Right, it's going to be the real deal of what we need to know moving forward with this new news media, social media, new technology that's out there.
Just everything. Right. It's going to be very comprehensive.
So to wrap up the Trump prophecy, if you will, to wrap up this movement that we have, there's a little bit of a lengthy clip, but I think it is critically important, and maybe about halfway I'll stop it and we'll talk about it, but it is critically important for you guys to see this. And I put the date, timestamp the date on it. This is from December 2014. Okay, this is Kim Clement, a prophet of sorts, and a musician, and he uses music in the background while he's prophesying, I guess, and praying. So here's Kim, and here's from 2014. Put yourself in the mindset of that. I was depressed then. Very depressed and very sad that we would never see the prosperity ever return. And this, I give him credibility for saying this in 2014. And now we've got fact. So when you're listening to him speak, think about that. This was 4 years ago, 2014. Trump wasn't even on the radar. And there was no hope.
Just pray out for wherever you are. Pray for this nation. Pray for Israel. Pray for your nation. Pray for ecclesia, the thing that Jesus cherishes most of all. Pray, pray, pray. For God has not finished with this nation yet. God has not given up on this nation yet. God has spoken, is this nation? Where do you find it in my word? Who is persecuting my church? Who is it that is slandering my church? Who is it that is beheading my people? It is not America. But have you looked at Islam? And have you noticed, says the Lord, that the wickedness that they have presented, the wickedness that Saudi Arabia has given to the world, is Islam in Mecca and oil. And they have said, we will control the United States, we will control the world. But God says, look at Saudi Arabia. Look carefully, for there is great wickedness brewing from there. And as they plan, says the Lord, as they plan, I want you to understand something. While they are planning for the destruction of America, there are those in this nation that call themselves prophets, that are constantly speaking against this nation. There are those who call themselves prophets that speak with Islam against this nation. There are Christian prophets that have joined forces in a very strange way to curse this nation. Why have you betrayed me, says the Lord? This is where my church is being built up. This is where bread is being sent to the world. And this is not the place where my church is persecuted. Not much. But God said, if you would watch, Saudi Arabia is hiding something. And they will be caught with their pants down, says the Lord. They will be caught, says the Lord. Netanyahu, listen to me, Netanyahu. You are afraid of what is happening in Iran. Forget that for a minute. Look to other countries, for Russia has already made a decision. This prophet was caught up and saw the table that they have stood at. This prophet has heard how this dog that is from a junkyard is about to be released, and how he will bite viciously. But his attack shall not only be with Iran, but it shall come against Saudi Arabia. But the Lord says, do not worry, because while these cats and dogs are fighting, America shall begin to bloom. America shall begin to prosper. America shall bring oil. America shall bring oil. America shall suddenly see a massive influx of new ideas and creativity. A new energy is coming, and it's coming soon, says the Lord. A new energy is coming, and it's coming soon. Are you listening to me, says the Spirit of God? And you say, what about this president? You say, what about this president? Did you understand that in the scriptures, when a king did not deal with the people that were his enemies, and if the king and the president does not deal with the enemies of God, who is it that I raise up? When Samuel told Saul, you are to kill the Amalekites, every one of them, King Saul spared them. You cannot spare them, Obama. You cannot spare them. They are not spareable, because God said when the king did not do it, he raised up a prophet who would then overtake them. God says the prophetic anointing upon this generation shall slice down the enemies, and America shall enter into a 7-year of prosperity, says the Lord. Come on! You may say, what does this have to do with me? You may say, what has this have to do with me? You have heard prophets shouting from the left and the right. We have on good information that America shall collapse and it shall be wiped out. God said, not while I'm alive, and I happen not to be dying very soon. I died once on a cross, I die no more. I die no more, says the Lord. Don't you tell me what my plans are. Why is there a lying spirit in your mouths, O prophets? Why is it that you curse along with ISIS and Islam, the nation that has brought bread and brought oil and brought life and being taken taken the captives into their borders. What about that, says the Lord? Where is your justice? Where is your righteousness? Where is your equity? Oh, God says, I will show you that I will raise out of the dust of this nation, the dust I will raise young men and women who shall take over and take charge, says the Lord. Saudi Arabia, you kept the oil. You tried to deal with Russia. God says you did the wrong thing. For when you touched my church, can my ecclesia be destroyed? Never. Yes, we know there will be tribulation, and so it shall be, and my people shall join me. But before that time, there is a global awakening. No, not just one town and city, not just one country, but many. Look how I invaded Egypt. You see, most people don't know this, but it was in Arabia that John the Baptist was beheaded. And it is in Arabia, and Saudi Arabia shall and has persecuted more Christians than you realize. But God, I said, I will now make them accountable. How shall I do this? I will prosper the very country that they hate, calling them the great Satan. New energy is arising. And God says, even though oil shall always be fought after, there shall be burning and burning and burning like you have never seen. And there shall be fights and antagonism, but I cannot unfortunately do it now, as I'm stuck with one who has decided not to fight Islam, not to fight radical Islam. But God said, I will cause a new one to rise up in this nation. And God said there will be a prophetic anointing that shall carry you until that year. And that prophetic anointing, says the Lord, will bring prosperity to the soil of this country and to the families of this nation. Yes, they have sinned. America is not guiltless. But God said, when I weigh the balance, when I weigh the scales, when I set out the scales, there is great iniquity in Saudi Arabia and all over that region, and therefore watch with your eyes as the earth shakes, and watch how this prosperity comes. For now I set the prophetic seal upon my house and upon my church to prosper and prosper and prosper even more, says the Lord of hosts.
So I did not know. I did not do my homework. I did not know that he had a stroke a year later and died.
Well, that's what one of our patrons are saying on the show.
So if you listen to what he was saying, folks, all of that has come to pass. We're seeing
a lot of it. Yeah, I was kind of surprised at some of the stuff he was saying. He was basically describing not just Donald Trump, it seems like, but also just some of the things that he's able to do.
And he said,
Donald Trump was able to do.
He said that when I rise this one up, when this one rises up to take over, there'll be a 7-year prosperity. Well, the first year is one of those things where you just gotta twist it and wrench it and kind of rip it around. So I'll say the first year, we'll chuck that one out the window, and Donald Trump gets 7 more years, and we get to experience 7 years of prosperity.
Right.
I can see that easily happening. There's no question about that. He's talking about the youth rising up and taking control. I absolutely see that when we talk about Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk and Blexit and folks like us. And, I mean, Mark Dice, I don't know how old he is, but whatever. And you got,
he's probably our age.
Right? You got Brandon Strucka, who is
our age. He's our age.
But I mean, you have this new movement, and he's talking about this global thing. I was saying last year, 2017, that 2018 would be the year of the citizen. I stand corrected. This will be the year of the Great Awakening, the movement around the world. More of Kim's prophecies that he talked about how Christianity will be restored once again. Some people have been saying that the end is near, in the sense that we may see some of the most beautiful times to come, because that's what happens at the end. But, well, I don't know.
Does it?
Yeah,
we don't go out and
a blaze of glory, burning ball of flames.
Well, like just a bad way, it seems like.
Right.
But you're saying good way.
Yeah, well, I mean, just watch out for the white horse. I think there's like 7 of them or something. I don't know.
Okay,
8.
all right.
Revelations, folks. I don't know.
Stay away from the light.
Look away from the light. So I'm really excited about this. I am down that road in Mark Taylor has a YouTube channel.
Yeah, apparently one of our people in the comments section said it is Mark Taylor Official on YouTube. And so that's good because Brian I didn't ever heard of the guy. And Brian made it sound like he was not aware of a YouTube channel, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that was and Mark Taylor was the one that had the prophecy that is now the movie's out, Trump prophecy. This is audio only, but this is Bill Still. Bill Still is a very plain-spoken Christian, just a real calm, like if you ever sat down and talked to him, it'd be really dry, maybe. Like, he's not very animated. He
sounds like he's reading from a teleprompter, but he does it well. He sounds just like your typical old school anchor from back in the day where, Tom Brokaw reporting from ABC News and, that kind of stuff. And so he kind of sounds like that. And I think that's good. I think that the right needs somebody like that.
Right. And he's usually always right. He's very good. He's on top of things. He puts out a video every day. He's got ads in sponsors at the beginning of his video and at the end. So, I mean, he's getting paid for doing it.
You could tell he's making a legitimate attempt to be professional is what it is. Yeah,
absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I've got a lot of trust and faith in him. So he put out a video just today. I think it might have been today. He put a video out and he said that he had to think long and hard about whether he was going to talk about this to anybody. But he tells the story how he went to the polling station on Friday before lunch, which was early enough to be able to navigate. He's been voting for decades and decades, and he's got it down pat. The time to vote, how to vote, where to vote, when to vote, and to avoid all the crowds. He said he got there before lunch. He said it was so insanely packed. He said it looked like it was going to take well over an hour to get through the line, easily an hour to get through the line. So he decided to turn back. And as he turned back to go back to his car, he was going to come back later. I'll just say it. You go look at it. You do with whatever you want with what he says, but I believe what he says. So he tells the whole story, how he sees the angels and a half-shaped moon over top of the polling station, warring and upset and angry at how far we have, as humans, have fallen, and that the evil, if you will, has gotten the best of us, whether it be pornography and drinking and killing and just everything bad out there, that we've gotten so far gone as a nation, America specifically, because America is a nation founded on God. We've got God's favor. America has God's favor. There's no question about that. The founding of this country couldn't have happened without the favor of God. Abraham Lincoln, the favor of God. Trump has the favor of God in that sense. And so he saw this whole thing. He said he was rocked to the core about it. You can hear his whole story about it. And as he was doing the video, he said, I had to call my wife right away, and she didn't pick up the phone. So I left a message for her. And it's been a minute-long message. And he said, as of this recording, I'm not sure if she kept it or not. So right after that, it cuts to audio only, and apparently she kept it because then he added it in the video afterwards. And this is the message that Bill Still, we called his wife, having a vision, seeing that the angels were surrounding this polling station in an attempt to protect and an attempt to help. Something, I don't know, folks. Supernatural's out there. I don't know. So here's Bill Still. This is audio only.
Hon, I'm sorry to disturb you. I just got to tell you about this. I didn't know a warring angel from a s'more until you used to talk about it. And I'll tell you, when I walked up to those polls, or when I was walking out, actually, the presence of the warring angels of America hung over that place to such a degree. I've got tears rolling out of my eyes right now. That's all.
I'm still reporting from just outside the one-time free speech capital of the world. Good day.
So that was Bill Still
calling his wife
and letting his wife know what just happened to him. He said he was shaken to his core. The tears were rolling. He said he shouldn't have been. He even said, I shouldn't have been driving. It was that bad. But, and he said, I dealt with it for a few days. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to tell you. He said, I got the feeling that I'm supposed to tell my wife and talk to her about it. And I did. And then I worked with it and thought about it for a while. And I felt like I had to tell my viewers, I had to let you know that the hand of God is in this more than anybody knows. I'm just saying.
No, absolutely. I think that, and God is always there no matter what. No matter what. It's not like, oh, this is the time God is there. And so there's always that guiding that I see everywhere. I talk to people all the time, about this American Priorities Conference. It's like I hear people say this all the time where they know that they're doing the right thing in the eyes of God when suddenly you get this miraculous help. Like things start going your way. It's like, wow, am I just getting lucky here? It's like the hand of God saying this is the right thing to do because now all of a sudden you're getting help. And on the flip side, if you're doing something that maybe this wasn't the plan, things all of a sudden don't really work out so well. It's kind of weird how it goes both ways.
Right.
And so you end up being guided that way.
Bad things have happened to me in my life. And I used to get, I had a huge anger management problem. And I used to get triggered by some of these bad things that would happen. And I would blame other people or other outside sources. I was the victocrat, as Larry Elder calls it. I was a victocrat for years and years and years, never identified as a liberal, but he certainly had those liberal tendencies. But looking back on some of the bad things that have happened to me, they actually pushed me in the right direction. So we were at church one time, and one of the pastor's wife came up to me while I was with my wife getting the kids and said, I am so sorry to hear about what happened. And I looked at my wife. I said, what did she? She's like, oh, your job. I'm sorry to hear you lost your job. And I looked at my wife. I said, why? What are you telling everybody this stuff for? And she's like, oh,
it was embarrassing.
I was embarrassed.
Right.
She said, oh, I just needed somebody to talk to and have somebody pray with us. And she was all upset. I said, hey, both of you, calm down. And they're like, you're not upset? Why? One, I hated that job. I hated the supervisor. He was an angry SOB. And I know for a fact I would not have looked for another job because I was too comfortable with the pay. I was making too much money and I didn't have the time and whatnot. This was God answering the prayers of my children and my wife for me getting off third shift and going to day shift, making the same amount of money. And I told him, I said, I don't get mad at those bad things anymore. When something bad happens, realize instantly, like pull yourself up and say, this means something good's going to happen. It's right around the corner. It's right there. So with that being said, I'm just saying that this all has a lot to do with everything going on. One of the other prophecies that they were talking about, walls, protection. America needs protection. America needs walls. America this. Two countries coming together to help build the wall in order to save both sides of the people, which can be looked at. Donald Trump working with Mexico, NAFTA's out. Mexico and Trump both talking about the implementation of the wall because it would help both sides of both parties. I've got some information that I still can't let the cat out of the bag, but we've got a really close friend of ours who is down near that area in the South and is close to other folks. And he says that there are some very big things in the works having to do with the drug cartel, having to do with the government of Mexico and Donald Trump.
Interesting.
And if you are like a Donald Trump who sees that you've got to rid yourself of the infestation of criminal activities. Think about making America great again, and you could almost make the argument, if you truly want America to be great, you're going to have to work on Mexico and make them good too.
Right. It's almost like osmosis. Make the world great by starting with your own country and then working out from there, right?
Right.
I can see that.
And so implementing a minimum wage in the trade deal, manufacturing trade, if Mexico wants to send manufacturing here to America, minimum $15 an hour.
Now, what do you think?
That's rich in Mexico.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
it's about time to raise it up, though.
We had a family member that was talking about how she's going to start making, very young, did a lot of free work as an intern, but she's also working for a company who, I don't know what she's making. I don't know what she was making, but they had just mandated on their own. They weren't forced by any government to go ahead and say that our baseline pay for everybody is going to be $15 an hour or more, which meant that virtually everybody in the company got a raise.
Amazon's already implemented that. FedEx is implementing a $16 an hour. People are making a huge come up with their pay.
So she's an American and she's young and she was like, I'm rich. Now, could you imagine if she was a Mexican who lived in Mexico her whole life and suddenly she's going to make $15 an hour? So this kind of minimum wage mandate for a Mexican company is going to obviously prevent people from wanting to come to America, because I think that's the big thing. It's like, let's go to America so that way we don't have to work for, I don't know what their average wage is, but let's just say $1 an hour, and we can go to America and make $10 an hour under the table. And if they can make $15 an hour in their own country, that's what they'll do. And we've seen this a million times before, where people in America have this really, what's the word I'm looking for? Egotistical, I guess, belief that people who have lived their entire life in some other land obsess over one day coming to America. Well, let me ask you this. How would you feel if somebody was like, you know what, you need to just leave that country and come live the rest of your life, rip up your whole family, just you and your immediate family, we're going to bring you over to our country because we're so great.
The fall of America in my mind in 2014, not one single second did I think about leaving the country.
Permanently.
I started thinking about, okay, I got to get my mind right. We're Venezuela again.
It's
or not again, but we fall into Venezuela.
It's unbelievably egotistical to look at somebody in some foreign land that not only lived there their entire life, but grew up around a large family who've also lived there for maybe generations, right? It's so egotistical to say, you know what they really want, you know what would make their life better than they ever could imagine, if we go ahead and rip them out of their homeland.
Right.
And then put them somewhere in America, some whatever.
So Trump is talking with this NAFTA deal, this new deal, and they're working out the details and ironing the details. And the president of Mexico is speaking about all the money, just the Niagara Falls of money coming into Mexico from America. And that's not real. I mean, it's real that it's happening, but that's not a sustainable, real dependable type of import. Something physical, oil, manufacturing, crops, something physical. You just don't send your population to another country, make more money, and then hopefully they send it back. That's no good. You don't want to operate like that.
Well, at the end of the day, what Trump is implementing is the right thing. And I think that everything, we talked about this earlier in the show, everything that he has experienced his entire life has led him to implement these policies that actually make sense because he's seen it real world. You know, when he's in the construction business, he goes down and greets the actual workers, sees what they're doing, gets a grasp of the understanding of it.
Do you remember that picture of Trump when he put the hard hat on?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen a president more comfortable with a hard hat on than Donald Trump.
Right, because most politicians like, my hair, don't mess with my hair, don't touch my hair.
I mean, Obama, he didn't wear a hard hat. He wore a bicycle helmet.
Oh,
I mean, what are we talking about?
How did he think that was going to work? Oh, that's worse than Dukakis doing the bobblehead out of the tank.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, that Dukakis.
He did the bobblehead out of the tank thing. Wow. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, really bad. So, winning big league, what has happened in the last 2 years is something of, when I say something of a miracle, and I talked about this in the scope, what Donald Trump has done is nothing miraculous and nothing new. The fact that he could get it done, okay? The ideas, and that's also something that makes Donald Trump, the left cannot understand Donald Trump because of this, but Donald Trump has ideas, okay? And the ideas that he has to implement to make America great again, they're not really new, groundbreaking ideas. What is a miracle is that they're actually being implemented. That he's actually being able to make this happen, whether it be the deregulations, more regulations removed in 2 years by Donald Trump than any president at any length of time. That's here in America. The greatest booming economy in the world. It's on fire. It's here. 2 years. I don't know any. It's so much so. My boss said to me this week. He said we were talking about gold prices, silver, and this is more proof. Just adding it to it. I work for gold, one of the largest gold manufacturers, and
Brian is literally a goldsmith.
Yes, and now that we create our own, we cast our own gold tubing. We're in the top 10 of gold casting. I mean, we have the ability to negotiate tens of millions of dollars of gold to use and not pay for it until after we sell it. That's something a lot of people don't have that ability to do, just saying how big the company is. So I'm talking with my boss, and he's like, oh, yeah, the gold product, the product of gold, whatever it is higher than it was last year, sales. The sales of silver is lower than last year. Guys, people aren't buying silver. Silver's cheap, dirt cheap. Like we just throw it away, literally. I mean, we practice on it and then throw it in a bucket and somebody melts it back down and remakes silver again. Silver's almost nothing to us. Everybody's buying gold because they got more money in their pockets and the economy's going. My boss, who's a baby boomer, 62, looking to retire here in a couple of years, said he said this to me. He said, I wrote it down too, so I made sure I wouldn't forget what he said. Oh, that's right there. He said to me, Brian, this is the greatest economy in my generation. Him being like, he's old enough to be my dad. He's saying to me, so my parents are saying to me, people are the age of my parents are saying to me that this is the greatest economic boom in their generation. Folks, if he can see this, they can see the writing on the wall. That's why I keep telling you, don't worry about Tuesday. Go out and vote. Don't get upset. Don't be nervous. And here's some of the numbers. Some of the blowout numbers. Job creation in October, with jobs numbers out this week, which is awesome. 250,000 jobs added to the market. Wages rise. Now, this Ivanka Trump tweeted this out earlier in the week, so she didn't have the number yet. But for September, she tweeted out wages rose in the month of September 2.5%.
And that's the big argument. I was watching all the fake news media these past couple of days in order to see what they're saying. And, of course, we got the employment is way up, unemployment is way down, and all these numbers look great. And their biggest argument was, yeah, okay, so more people have jobs and less people are unemployed, but they're working 2-3 jobs. They're not getting paid enough.
That was under Obama, 2, 3, 4 jobs.
Well,
part-timers.
You mean the 60% of people that were working.
Right. Correct.
So,
correct.
So yeah, 60% of people working under Obama. But what I'm saying is that's their new argument. Their new argument now is, yeah, but they're not making any more money, so they're not sharing in the new prosperity under Trump. And they're really driving that home. In fact, if you listen to all the fake stream news out there, who are, your CNNs, your Face the Nation, and all these other places, they're economists. Anytime they're talking about the economy, that's the big argument. And what did you just say?
God pulled a trick. He pulled another fast one on them. September wages rise. 2.5% in September. And what happened in October? 3% wage rises in October. Folks, the middle class is now making more money than they have ever made before.
It's going to be like everybody's in the upper middle class.
And Donald Trump says, we're giving the middle class, specifically the middle class, an extra 10% tax cut.
Oh, my goodness.
Businesses don't need it anymore. They're already making their money.
I don't know if I ever talked about this on the show before. But I feel like maybe I may have talked to Brian about it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. There are parts of town in Cincinnati, and I'm sure it's probably similar in other cities because it's so weird. It's just like, what was going on back then? How is this even possible? So I live in pretty much a starter home and whatnot, and there's a lot of starter homes. But if you look at the neighborhoods that these smaller what you would be considered a starter home are in, they were all built at a certain time. A lot of it is like just after World War II. So you got your homes from
the 50s.
The 50s, and if you go back, you have starter homes that are from like the late 20s, mid 20s, and these were built to accommodate the returning soldiers from World War I, and then in the 50s, World War II. But there's these certain areas of town where prior to the buildup of these GI homes, is what I'll call them, they were just farms.
Craftsman homes?
Yeah, but prior to that, farms.
Right.
But if you go to some of these older neighborhoods and you drive through them, and you'll see like on Ludlow Avenue in Clifton, and you look, and it's house after house after house, all right next to each other, all the way down the street. If you look on the other side, same thing on the other side. It's enormous, beautiful mansions from like the early 1900s, like turn of the 20th century. And it's just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And that's not the only part of town. That's one part.
My street's a little bit like that. We have these.
Street?
Yeah, this house.
No, I mean full-blown mansions.
Oh,
full-blown. You drive down Ludlow.
This was a mansion back in
when
it was built.
No, totally not talking about that.
Bigger.
I'm talking full. Like when you look at it, you're like, "Wow, a major CEO must have lived in this."
Wow.
It's back to back to back. And another place, if you go to like the western part of Price
You're talking
Hill,
about the ones with like the wraparound porches, and
all made out of stone,
and like the corner of the house is like rounded, kind of, and the pillar thingy,
like 3 stories, and like just. You're like, oh, somebody really wealthy lived here. And also, if you drive through Price Hill and you start to get to the Western Hills part, like down Glenway, if you ignore the multiplexes that have been built in between them, because they weren't there, these are newer.
Right.
If you ignore those and just imagine they're not there, huge mansions, huge. And here's what I'm trying to say. What was going on around that time? Because, by the way, those houses on the west side of town are about the same age as the ones on Ludlow and Clifton. So these things were being built all around the same era. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, what was going on back then to where people were building houses like this?
The Industrial Revolution.
Could be, absolutely. And here's what I'm thinking. I wonder if we're going to have something like that towards the end of the Trump administration, where, like, you'll just have a new street, where they're building new homes that are, like, enormous mansions. I mean, it very well could be.
I don't know what part of town you guys are living in or what's going on in your neck of the woods, but we are seeing here in Cincinnati, on the west side of Cincinnati, we are seeing a lot of what used to be like a gas station and a 7-Eleven.
Mm-hmm.
They call them UDF here, United Dairy Farmer. They have scrapped like all their old stores and are building what used to be a nice size mom and pop grocery store, brand new gas pumps, brand new everything.
Huge too.
And now the Kroger, which is a grocery store, is scrapping the grocery store.
And the Krogers are big. Big grocery store.
They're scrapping a grocery store for a megaplex. It's a Walmart, Meijer, grocery, clothing, furniture, all in one, multi-level thing. And I'm like, holy smoke.
You know what else? You remember the last time we had big prosperity like this? We had really fun Christmases.
Oh, yes.
Not just for the kids. I'm talking the parents were like,
yes.
We're going to really spoil their kids. And they'd go and they'd spend thousands of dollars for gifts and stuff like that. And of course, the stores respond in kind. They take all this extra money that they're making and they put these huge displays and they're really marketing all this stuff and it's all beautiful. And you go to the mall and like, it's just jam packed with Christmas decorations and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Midsummer, I tweeted out, I said, you watch, this tweet's going to age well. I said, this is going to be one of the greatest Christmases ever. Because we're putting Christmas back in Christmas.
Yes.
The stores, they know what's up. They read the white. The successful stores can anticipate what's coming. They're going to load their stores up with the awesome stuff. You're going to go shopping and everything's going to be decorations decked out all over the place. There's going to be awesome stuff to buy for gifts for people and people are going to pay for it. And you'll have the nicest Christmas trees that are just loaded to the rafters with presents everywhere. And what I'm describing to you right now, I kind of remember way back in the day, like in the mid-80s. Yeah, when things were like 10, gangbusters.
Yeah, like 10, 11, 12. It was good times, folks.
Yeah.
It was really good. My parents back in the mid-80s, a lot of people said if you started a business in the mid-80s, you became very wildly successful. My parents did at the time, became wildly successful and took advantage of the economy and a lot of the great things that were happening under Ronald Reagan. And I'm here to tell you, folks, that Donald Trump is surpassing Ronald Reagan's legacy. There's no question about that.
I can already see that coming. And it's because Donald Trump has certain tools in the tool bag up here in his noggin that Ronald Reagan just didn't have.
Right. And don't forget this. This aged well. This aged very well.
Because some of those jobs of the past are just not going to come back. And when somebody says, like the person you just mentioned, who I'm not going to advertise for,
oh boy,
salty dog,
he's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it.
Yes, there
is.
He
just says, "Well, I'm going to negotiate a better deal." Well, how exactly are you going to negotiate that?
With my mouth.
Why
what
don't
magic
you
wand
watch
do
and
you
learn?
have?
Magic wand.
And usually the answer is he doesn't have an answer.
Watch and learn, Obama. Watch and learn.
Watch and learn.
So Donald Trump, a lot of people, I'm not going to take credit for this, but somebody pointed out, and I can't remember who it was, but I will give them credit if it does come to my mind, that Barack Obama's legacy is Donald Trump. It may be Rush Limbaugh, I can't remember, but he said, whoever it was said, Barack Obama's legacy is Donald Trump.
I know we say that a lot here, but I don't remember.
I think I heard it on Rush Limbaugh. And that's very insightful because that's pretty much what it boils down to. And when you listen to Obama there, you could tell he says with confidence that not only is there no answer, but that's just the status quo for president, is that we don't have an answer. We don't know how to solve these problems. Why? Because they're unsolvable. You literally need supernatural powers with a magic wand in order to solve these problems. In other words, they're not solvable in this universe.
Or with this type of swamp, DC.
Well, even so, he doesn't even know. You could tell by the words that he used and the way that he said them that he says
clueless.
He really doesn't know. He's clueless, but he honestly thinks there's no answer. It's not like he's like, guys, I know there's an answer out there. I just don't know it. I'm just not competent enough. And to be honest with you, I don't think anybody's competent enough to do it.
He's been brainwashed that capitalism really is evil.
Yeah.
He's completely sold, Obama, completely sold that capitalism just doesn't work.
Oh my gosh, I just had a revelation. We all know that socialism doesn't work. It fails every time it tries.
Right.
If there is no answer to any of these problems, then why not try socialism? I mean, we know it fails, but so does everything else. Everything fails.
And
Let's try it.
And if we do socialism, then me as president will get rich.
Well, right. At least I'll be able to prosper.
My peeps, the people that come along with me, they'll prosper.
You want to ride my coattails? Go ahead and ride my coattails. I think that's what it is. I think people, look, you gotta, I know we always say, look, these people are inherently evil. But come on, let's be realistic. I don't think that people wake up every morning and say,
Hillary Clinton does.
Okay, but maybe her. But she's an anomaly. I think there's a lot of, you probably are family members with a lot of people who think we should be doing socialism, and they're not evil people.
Well, my Gen Xer, the guy that's a hardcore lib that I work with, he's not an evil person. He can be a likable guy. It's just every once in a while he'll do the drive-by and throw something out there and
then run away because he knows,
Right. Me and the boss were talking about the great economy, and he made the comment, "Don't forget where this came from," as he started to dash out the door. I said, "You're absolutely right. I agree with you on it," and he stopped.
Oh, you set him up.
I said, "You are so right. We've got to give credit where credit is due." I absolutely thank Barack Hussein Obama for Donald Trump.
Oh, man.
Barack Obama his legacy is Donald Trump.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
He went nuclear and
just
shut down and ran away.
And isn't it funny that of all the people that could have taken over and become president, the one guy who would know how to pull the right levers to erase everything that Barack Obama did is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
So in a way, his legacy is that he never existed.
Yes.
That he will one day. It's like that picture in Back to the Future where it's fading away. Yeah, like you're looking at a photo of yourself and it's fading away. Yeah. That's Barack Obama. He's looking at the Hall of Presidents and his figure in the Hall of Presidents is slowly disappearing. And that's by his own making.
Right.
If his legacy is Donald Trump, then it's kind of like Marty McFly intervening in the meeting of his parents that ends up causing himself to slowly disappear.
Yeah, Barack Obama will become that obscure president, or maybe he might be remembered. Now he's going to become that obscure president that'll be, there's a black president.
It's the first black president. But you're right. Maybe in 100 years they'll be like, who was the first black president? I think it was that one. He had a Muslim name. It'll be like that. Like
right.
It's like Baraka from Mortal Kombat. Is that his name? Baraka. That is actually a character from Mortal Kombat.
Right. So the jobs that weren't coming back under Donald J. Trump, 434,000 manufacturing jobs have returned. First time that I can know, and I tell you, Cincinnati is a big manufacturing town. Mm-hmm. First time that I can remember, and I don't know when, they're advertising manufacturing jobs, machinist jobs on the radio.
Yeah.
On the radio.
That's amazing. Everybody is.
I was quitting.
That means they paid money to put an ad on the radio.
I was quitting this career. I was hanging it up and looking at changing careers and doing something different because this career had run its course. It was done as a machinist.
And you know what? That was actually without Trump being the savior that he ended up being. That was an honest and accurate and an intelligent assessment of the field. I mean, could you imagine being a steel worker prior to Donald Trump coming along, or being a coal miner. I mean, you were done. Your career was done. Even, do you realize that computer programmers done in America? You had to subcontract Indians from India, not Indian like Native Americans,
well, you would
from
never,
India.
Yeah, you would never call that.
You were forced to.
Indigenous.
You cannot write enough code in America on American wages with American workers, with American companies in order to make it. In fact, if you hired an American company to write a program for you, they were subbing it.
Yeah.
They were subbing it out to some firm in India.
So they could actually turn a profit.
Right. That's all changing now.
Absolutely. Red wave rising. If you want to talk about this red tsunami, this red wave, just common sense, y'all. Common sense. Have you seen? I mean, news outlets are starting to do the backpedal.
They have to.
A little bit.
They did the same thing right before Trump got elected.
It's identical. This is deja vu. This is Groundhog Day for the Democrats. This is Groundhog Day for the Democrats.
How do you not have the video queued up right now of the woman screaming at the sky? Oh, that would have been good right now.
So,
Mr. Producer, where are you at?
Right. So the crowd sizes that Donald Trump is commanding, and they're saying right now that Donald Trump has been the greatest asset as a president to the Republican Party. No president has ever been such a great asset to the Republican Party as Donald Trump has. Donald Trump has taken it upon himself. His energy, his time, his wherewithal, everything that he had in 2016, he's bringing that to the table again. I mean, he's out there. What is that clip? He's out there having fun.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
With this. He's having fun at these rallies. Here's Donald Trump at the rally. Yeah, be careful on the sound. Here we go.
You have to go out on November 6th or sooner. Who voted? Who voted? Oh, wow. Everybody voted already? No kidding. Let me see it again. Who voted? Then what the hell am I doing here tonight?
He's getting real comfortable.
What am I doing here? Oh, boy.
Listen to that, guys. That's just one rally.
Oh, they're getting bigger.
Looks like 100% of the people in this room voted. All right, let's just enjoy ourselves, okay? I can skip the vote.
Let's just enjoy ourselves.
Awesome. So, it's interesting. We were thinking that he might actually win this thing back in 2016 because, wow, he's getting good turnouts for these rallies. There'll be a room that he has set up for a rally that can hold as many as 6,000 people. I went to that. I think Brian was unable to go to that particular one. That was the first time I got to meet Donald Trump, just a handshake, real quick handshake. And I thought, well, the capacity here is probably close to 6,000. I see a pretty good amount of gap behind the crowd. So, because I walk in last because I was a volunteer. So I had to go mosey on up to the VIP section in the front. But from the back, I entered and I was like, okay, there's a gap here. There's a sizable gap. And I'm looking around, maybe 5,000 people are here. If it fits 6,000, probably 5,000. So I go up there. He does his whole entire speech. And he said, and I truly believed at the time that he was lying, but that it was
or misinformed.
No, I think he would have known. He would have known what he was saying was not true, but I thought he was playing up to the cameras. And that was, we're totally full here and we're so full and there's so many people that came that instead of waiting outside and not being allowed in, we put them in an auxiliary room and as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to talk to them. I truly thought that he was talking that up to CNN, who was going to use this crowd of about 5,000 or so with a space behind them as, oh, look, a big flop. Nobody came to this. And so he spoke and he shook everybody's hands and he walked out, and Newt Gingrich was there and everything like that. And some people spoke to him for a little bit. And I went home. And as soon as I got home, I saw him standing. They said, Donald Trump came to Cincinnati to speak today in Sharonville or whatever. And I saw him standing on like a little tiny platform, almost like a column of some sort, talking to people that were standing around him. And I was like, that didn't look like where I was at. What's going on here? He wasn't kidding. There was a huge auxiliary room where they led the people who the fire marshals would no longer allow into the main room. They said, whoa, we're at capacity, people. We can't have a fire hazard. We're going to get a ticket. No more people allowed in here. That's why there was a gap behind that. I thought he was just joshing everybody. It turns out he literally went and gave a little speech, a mini speech, to the people who couldn't get into the main room. And that was when I realized, well, if you compare that to Hillary Clinton's crowds, I think he might actually be able to pull this off. Well, fast forward to today, and there's like 20,000 seat capacity, an additional 5,000 capacity on the floor, all the way to the rafters. There's no empty seats anywhere as far as the eye can see, all the way to the very top. Like when you went to Cincinnati, when I was driving the motorcade, and so I didn't get to see what the crowds look like. Brian was inside. I
scoped it.
But there were some spaces at the very top because that was his biggest crowd ever. It was like a 20,000 capacity arena that probably had maybe 17,000 in it. I think the final count was like around 17. So it's probably about 3,000 seats way up at the top that were probably unfilled.
Right, and those
but
are
still his biggest.
Nosebleed seats.
All the way at the top, yeah. And so now he's got these arenas all the way to the rafters, all the way to the very top. I don't know.
The writing's on the wall.
I
folks.
know. I don't know how this is not going to be a surprising red wave. I just don't know. And I'll gladly come back next week and say, gosh, I don't know why, but somehow everything I was seeing turned out to be not the case.
Come on, Kerry.
But
spoiler alert.
No, but what I'm
win.
saying, I just don't see how it's possible.
Jim Hoff at the Gateway Pundit wrote an article, titled the article, Missouri Update. 27,000 turn out to see huge. President Trump. 50-degree, drizzly, dreary, rainy weather. Some walking up to 3 miles from a park, having to park their car 3 miles away.
Oh, I got to tell you about Lebanon. It was such bad weather. It was nasty. It was just spitting the whole time. It wasn't driving rain, but
thousands were there.
Yeah,
thousands.
Well, I'll give you the quick rundown on Lebanon. So Lebanon is a tiny little town, real tiny. But for whatever reason, it's like a must-come venue for every president. I
don't know why. Like that town is like.
We've had 45 presidents total. I think 40 of them have come to Lebanon.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. Like literally, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going back. It's too far of a drive. I live on the west side. I'm not allowed over there.
Yeah, it's probably about a good hour.
49. Yeah.
49 minutes?
Yeah, 49.
Okay. So check this out. It's such a tiny city that the fairgrounds has like one road. So there's 2 ways to get in. Either you come from the east or you come from the west.
Right.
And that's how you get to the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
So the Secret Service decided, hey, when we start to do our thing, people can't be anywhere near here. Because literally this is how you got to do it. If you want to get in early and you want to get a good seat or good standing position, you have to drive in like the night before, park, and just sleep in your car. Yeah. Secret Service was not going to allow that.
Nope.
So the sheriff had to blast out a message to everybody. Hey, if you're coming early, you have to be out of this area from like 11:30 to 2:30. The rally starts at 6. Like you can't even be there.
So at 2:30, the traffic is
locked
up. All roads, nowhere, nothing.
But the reason I tell you all that is because it goes to show you how hard it would be to get massive crowds there. A 20,000 person crowd in a venue that starts at 6, that don't even allow. They're literally churning cars away until 2:30.
Right,
literally.
Right.
So you can imagine how hard it is to get 20,000 in there. So I arrive, and they have this giant roof with no walls. It's a fairgrounds. That's what they do there, right? So, I mean, huge roof with pillars, no walls. And that's where they set up the stage, and they had these temporary stands. I would say probably that entire covered area would seat probably about 5,000, I would say. Maybe 4,000 or 5,000. Well, outside of the roof, it just went uphill in every direction. Those hillsides were totally full of people. I would venture to guess that that entire fairgrounds may have had over 10, maybe close to 15,000 people there. And only a third of which could fit underneath that roof.
Right, and there's only one road in and one road out.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
It was awful.
Yeah.
But, and
it was raining. It was raining and 15,000 people showed up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This opinion piece by Mark Penn from Fox News. The one thing my fellow Dems just don't get about President Trump, President Trump's most powerful weapon so far has not been the insult, which he certainly has been willing to use.
Wow.
But the idea. Take his idea for ending birthright citizenship. Can't say I support it, because I don't. But it's not an insult, a racial epithet, or an off-colored joke. It's an idea that focuses on how an open border policy reverberates. And it's even an idea that former Senate Democrat Harry Reid of Nevada once passionately supported. Folks, more evidence. There are no new ideas from the Democrat Party. They're running on beat Trump.
Right. That's what they have to go on, because they're scared to say what they really have to say if they want to be honest, and that is, look, read the Communist Manifesto and you know exactly what our platform is. They can't say that because we're still living in a country that either A, you know that that's the end of America, the end of the Constitution, the end of freedom, or B, you just know there's got to be something wrong with it because you've heard so many bad things about it. So that's the platform that they have to keep quiet, although some of them are cracking at the seams and just openly admitting it. And that's kind of hilarious because in the past, at least they tried to hide it, and they're just not able to do that anymore. So 14th Amendment, we're going to talk about it?
Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah. This is a good time for the birthright citizenship.
Okay. So I loaded up the pertinent information. So apparently birthright citizenship stems from, there's a lot that could be said about this. I actually wrote an article about it. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably have read it on New Right Network website. And I talk about why we don't really have the kind of birthright citizenship that you hear, not only coming out of your average liberal who thinks that it is a right for you to come over from another country, 9 months pregnant, have the child, and that child now has full-blown citizenship and all that kind of stuff. But not just liberals, but even Republicans. Paul Ryan came out and said, wow.
Oh, yeah, Paul Ryan blasted Trump for wanting to abolish birthright citizenship with executive order.
Right.
Which is legal.
So I can give you the rundown of it. It starts off with the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is what they refer to, but you got to go back and walk through what happened. We had the Civil War, which, of course, emancipated the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation. The 13th...
Republicans did that.
Yeah, that was a Republican...
100%. 100%.
Lincoln.
Solely.
Now, that was an executive order. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order that was written towards the end of the war to pretty much say, y'all are losing and we're freeing the slaves, and that's that. And so that happened. And Congress got together and said, okay, we need to make this official. We need a real law. We need a real amendment. We should make it a constitutional amendment and put it in the Bill of Rights. We'll make it the 13th Amendment, and that was to free slaves. That's what 13th Amendment. What happened after the 13th Amendment freed the slaves was that some of the Southern Democrat-held strongholds in the South, who just recently got over fighting for the Civil War, had said, you know what? We're not going to let you get away with that 13th Amendment stuff. We're going to say, well, they don't get all the rights that you get, such as voting and all that kind of stuff.
And they're not citizens.
They're not citizens. How can you say they're citizens? They're descendants of Africans that were brought over here. They're not citizens. So that was their argument. And so for a while there was a lot of this, taking away of rights. And unjustly so. So Congress got back together and said, hey, we need to put an end to this. So the 14th Amendment came along, and I can read that as follows if I can get to the actual text of it. Let me rewrite this real quick. So 14th Amendment text, because I want to read the amendments text. That's what we need. Because if you go to Wikipedia, it's like a whole book. So anyway, there's several different articles of the 14th Amendment. The one that they're talking about with birthright citizenship is the first one, and that is no state shall make and enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive person of life, liberty, or property without due justice of law. Let's see. Let's get to the pertinent part. Oh my gosh, I'm back on Wikipedia. Sorry about that. Let me get to the text here. The Wikipedia article talks about the entire background of it. Where's the text? I'm sorry about that, folks. The different clauses. Oh my gosh, Wikipedia went straight up. Oh my gosh. All right, well, give me a second, guys.
Okay, so while you're looking for that, there was a great article. Now, you guys know my issues with Ann Coulter. I've been having issues back and forth with her, and I've disagreed with her on a handful of things. However, she did write an article. It was a great piece on this specifically. It was a great piece, so I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay, so I finally found... I don't know why Wikipedia can't just say, this is the 14th Amendment, and then subsequently go through the etymology of it. Instead, they have to basically... I think they're trying to gaslight us, really.
There you go.
Okay, so Section 1 is the important part. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And the rest of it just kind of reiterates that. But that first sentence is what we're all talking about. And so you need two things to be a citizen of the United States. If you're born on U.S. soil or naturalized in the United States, so one of those two things, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, this can be, I really hate the way this is worded, but you have to understand that the people that wrote this had one thing on their mind. And that was, these damn Southern Democrats are trying to prevent newly freed slaves from having the rights that a citizen should have by saying that they're not even a citizen. We need to write another amendment. So I get it that there may have been people who wrote this that weren't thinking about how this was going to be abused in the future. However, it does say what it says, and so subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, my first thought when I read that was, well, I mean, yeah, if you are a person on U.S. soil in America, then you're in the jurisdiction of the United States. Therefore, you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
Right.
And therefore, you have birthright citizenship. Now, why do I tell you that was my initial thought? Because this is the reason why so many pundits are going on so many shows and saying, come on, the words are right there. How could you not see this? Certainly, Donald Trump is about to violate the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself. I have right-wingers telling me this. Right-wingers are saying, oh my gosh, this is why we should have never elected Donald Trump. We should have went third party. They're like all these crazy things that they're saying. It's because they're reading this and they're having the same initial reaction I did, which was, well, I mean, if you're a person, you do not have to be a citizen of the United States in order to be subject to the jurisdiction of the laws. However, this was written in 1866. And I think what people need to realize is that they were thinking a very specific certain thing when they wrote these words. Brian, have you ever heard of a living, breathing document? Is what the liberals try to
they
say.
like to try and say that the Constitution is living and ever changing, ever breathing.
And conservatives say, no, it's as written. What do you mean living, breathing document? And I always misunderstood that too, because I was like, well, in a way it's a living, breathing document because if we don't like what it says, we can change it. Therefore, we are a part of the living, breathing document. But that's not what they meant. Here's what liberals mean by living, breathing document. Living, breathing document means that what is written in there should mean something different depending on the times. And I'll give you a perfect example. Back when they were trying to take the Second Amendment away from us via the Supreme Court, which would be D.C. versus Heller, which we've had lots and lots of talks about D.C. versus Heller. The argument the living, breathing document people were trying to make was, well, when they wrote that, they were using muskets and we had British invasion.
It's jokes, man. Come on.
And this militia thing, we know what they meant by militia back then, but come on, we got machine guns today and all kinds of dangerous, high-powered, semi-automatic weapons, which of course they don't even know what that means.
High-capacity magazines.
Oh my gosh, Carrie, when they say militia, what we really need to be talking about today in today's world is law enforcement and military. That's what they really mean by militia.
Military, same thing, right?
Yeah, it sounds like military. Yeah. It must mean military. When you hear the word militia, you must be talking about military, right? Militia, it sounds like it. And that's what they want you to believe so that when the Supreme Court comes down with a horrible decision, 5-4, in favor of D.C., which basically ends the Second Amendment as we know it forever, you will accept it because you will have accepted their ignorant changing of the meanings of words. So when you hear living, breathing document, they're literally referring to the changing of the definition of words to fit the times of today as it may change from the past. So when knowing that, I started to hone in on the word jurisdiction. Could it be that what we know jurisdiction to mean, which you see the movies, what do the cops say in the movies?
Oh, you're not in your jurisdiction.
You're out of your jurisdiction.
And I found out from my millennial, because his cousin is a state trooper.
Yeah.
State troopers' jurisdiction is the entire state.
Right. Okay.
My local police department here in Bridgetown cannot go to Westchester and hand out a speeding ticket.
Okay.
They can call the local Westchester police department and report it.
Yeah.
But he's out of his jurisdiction. You're across the line. This is Chickasaw County.
Right. And so when you hear "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof," and thereof meaning the United States, based on what we today know, thanks to Hollywood educating us properly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That if you are within the geographical confines of what they say here, the United States, then you are subject to the jurisdiction of all the laws of the United States, which would include all this stuff.
So you're telling me if you broke the federal law, you acted in such a way that you were you're causing yourself to be charged with a felony, and you're illegal from another country.
You're illegal.
And you break federal law into this country.
Yeah.
Have a baby.
Well, no.
Then you should.
Let's just say you murder somebody. Let's say you murder somebody, but you're on U.S. soil. They're allowed to charge you with murder because you are subject to their jurisdiction because you're on U.S. soil. It doesn't matter if you're legal or illegal. That's the argument they're trying to make.
Okay.
So I thought, well, maybe jurisdiction meant something different back then. And no offense to Will Chamberlain, but I watched an awesome scope that he did on this 14th Amendment. He actually believes that this will Donald Trump's executive order will not hold up. And he had mixed opinions on it, but he thinks ultimately, if you look at each individual justice, he thinks that it will come down a very narrow defeat of Donald Trump's executive order, and that they'll uphold the 14th Amendment as meaning birthright citizenship. I disagree, and it's based on the jurisdiction where Will Chamberlain actually said that he believes that jurisdiction means exactly back then as what it means today. However, when you look at the author of that particular passage, so originally when they wrote the 14th Amendment, you can imagine all these senators just steaming, the steam, the smoke is coming out of their ears because they're so angry at these Southern Democrats, these racist Democrats, because they've always been racist and they continue to be racist today, trying to prevent black freed slaves back in the 1860s from voting by making the argument that they're not citizens. So you get these senators, these Republicans,
because the former black slaves, if granted citizenship, would not vote Democrat.
They were running as Republicans.
Yes.
Former freed slaves were running for office, and they were running as Republicans, and they were being lynched for it. They were literally being terrorized by Democrats.
You mean just like Candace Owen and our black conservative friends being terrorized by the Democrats today?
Yeah, and thankfully they're standing up to it, and I know a lot of them did stand up, but they were literally being murdered, executed, and terrorized to death back then. So you could imagine at some point they had to be like, all right, I'm throwing in the towel, and I don't fault them for that. I mean, it's like life or death. It's like, it's a serious issue back then.
Right.
So of course you got steam and smoke coming out of the ears of these guys, and they're just like, damn it, if you were born in America, you're a citizen. So Republican Jacob, he's a senator, Republican Senator Jacob M. Howard, I believe of Missouri, if I remember correctly, said, whoa, let's look at these words real carefully here. We don't want to have any trouble in the future. So he decided, Michigan, he's from Michigan. I'm sorry about that. Michigan Senator, Republican, said, I would like to add a phrase to the 14th Amendment. And guess what phrase that was? He wanted to add, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, to the 14th Amendment. So if it wasn't for this particular senator, that phrase may not have been added, or something similar may not have been added, and we'd be having a heap of trouble. So of course, somebody said, well, okay, you want to add that phrase, but this was a huge debate, and all of it was transcribed and put into words and are available in the congressional archives. You can look it up and see the entire debate. But he was asked, what is it? What do you mean by jurisdiction, subject to the jurisdiction thereof? And so he said, every person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction is by virtue of natural law. And natural law, by the way, should I explain what natural law is? Natural law means when you were born, God gave you certain rights. And so that'd be natural rights, natural law is what they're talking about there. Not just, well, you have these rights because some guy wrote a law that
you
gave
have
you this right.
well, First and Second Amendment are both natural laws to me.
Right. So by virtue of natural law and national law, a citizen of the United States. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States. So if
still to this, and Ann Coulter's piece, she referenced this, and still to this day, if you are an ambassador and your wife is over here in America and she gives birth, your child does not receive citizenship. And here's the thing: as an ambassador, you probably, you may or may not want that, but you have family and you have another country. These illegals, these aliens that are coming up from the border are doing this on purpose for nefarious reasons.
Right.
So, and they're not necessarily giving up their country to come here. They're just coming here to get certain rights and then send money back. There's nefarious reasons behind all this.
And I would agree with Brian that a vast majority are doing that, but not all. But it doesn't matter. We have certain immigration laws, and if you're an illegal alien, now
why would we even need immigration laws if this be the case?
Right. And also, one thing I did not do. Sorry, I feel like I didn't do my homework. I arrived in class without my homework. But one thing I would like to see somebody research is, what was immigration law in 1866? Because it may very well have been back in 1866 that if you walked across the Mexican border into America and said, well, I'm here, I'm going to go get a job, and eventually I'm going to start working on my citizenship, maybe that wasn't an issue back then. And maybe they weren't even foreseeing that one day there would be immigration law that would require you to be invited in. So I'm not sure. Right. I'm not sure. It may very well be.
I promise you, because of the way that the Americans back in the day looked at the Chinese and the Asians that came over here, there was no birthright citizenship to where the Chinese would come over here, have a baby, and say, "Oh yeah, you're good to go. You're greenlit." Yeah. Oh no. Not only that. But if the 13th and 14th Amendment, Emancipation Proclamation, if this was the law of the land, meaning birthright citizenship, if that's what they intended, then riddle me this. When did the Indians get their citizenship, and why did this not pertain to them?
Right, and some, now here's another thing. There were liberals today, and even in the past, who argue that, well, these amendments back in the 1860s were written by white people, and by definition, white people are highly racist against non-whites.
Well, yeah, ask Don Lemon.
So, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, was specifically targeting Indians because white people hated Indians because they weren't white. They were people of color, which white people are always racist against at all times. It is a necessary understanding of the white race that they're always racist against whites. And therefore, Jacob Howard, senator from Michigan, included that specifically to make sure that we didn't accidentally let any people of color from the Indian tribes to become citizens. And that's just not the case at all. The Native Americans had their own land, so this wasn't even an issue. They would never be they're not even in America. That would be like saying, whoa, we got to be careful with this 14th Amendment here because somebody born in Mexico might be able to claim citizenship in America. Nobody was making that argument. So to be born on a Native American land was not even an argument. Now, years and years later, there were laws that came out that said, okay, if you were born on an Indian reservation within the continental United States, you were also an American citizen.
Representative Homer P. Snyder of New York, 1924, Indian Citizenship Act, 1924. Can you just take a gander at what his affiliation would be?
Is he Republican?
Happens to be.
Okay. Not surprising, because as is always the case, if the person has a D next to his name and there's a question as to whether or not there was some racism involved, then there was racism involved.
Of course.
And if it's Republican, never. Right. Is there ever any racism involved on any official matters from the Republican Party ever in history? Right. I mean, I can't think of a single instance.
Not only that, but you've got to look at it this way, folks. There is no reason in 1865, the war is over. There is no, you can't even fathom that these senators were sitting down and say, you know what? Anybody born in America should have full citizenship. Then why would we need immigration laws? You wouldn't need them. People just come over and have babies, and then you just you make sense.
Right. There's all kinds of stuff.
It doesn't pass the sniff test.
It doesn't.
Not only that, but there ain't no other country. Dude, try that in another country. Try to do that in Mexico. See what happens to you.
And people who are not just our founders from the founding, from the beginning, but people who write any amendments that end up in the Constitution are also considered founding fathers. So people who wrote 14th, 15th Amendment, 16th Amendment, whatever, all these people are considered founding fathers, just in a different era. They're not stupid people. These are very intelligent people. They can foresee and they can think through the philosophy of law and get it right. And the debates that went on probably seemed endless at the time, because somebody would say, I think it should be written this way. And somebody else says, are you nuts? That's not right. Because if you do write it this way, this is going to happen. After all that, you have what is written today based on a lot of deliberation and a lot of argument and a lot of people dissenting and saying, I think that's a bad idea.
Because the worst thing that could happen is that you write an amendment, like the 25th Amendment, and then you have to you write another amendment saying that prohibition doesn't exist.
I think that was the 18th Amendment.
Oh, the 18th?
Yeah, the 18th.
Okay.
Where they have to write another one that says, the prior amendment is, just disregard that. So sad. So sad.
How does that make y'all look?
You don't want to do that. You don't want to be that guy that wrote an amendment that the next amendment says disregard the idiots who wrote that. That would be so embarrassing. But one thing else I want to tell you about Jacob Howard, senator who wrote that clause in the 14th Amendment to make sure that we don't have a debacle, which all these years later we do. Somebody asked him, and I didn't know this when I wrote my article, and I'm so glad that I learned this since then. Somebody else asked for more clarification and said, hey, Senator, fine gentleman from Michigan, can you explain what you mean by jurisdiction? Because I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. And he said, what I mean by subject to the jurisdiction thereof, what I mean is full jurisdiction. Full jurisdiction. So what does that mean? And I'm going to credit Mark Levin for explaining what full jurisdiction means. What that means is, let's say you have a foreigner come in. If that foreigner murders somebody, they're subject to the murder laws of the United States, and of course they'll be prosecuted. It's not like you can murder somebody, be an illegal alien, murder somebody, and say, whoa, I'm illegal, which means I'm not subject to the jurisdiction of your laws, so you can't prosecute me. Of course that's not the case. Right. But what Senator Howard was saying, full jurisdiction. And Mark Levin pointed out, does the federal government have jurisdiction over an illegal immigrant?
Absolutely.
To say, now you're going to go serve in the military because you're here. And that is no. They can't. Yeah. They couldn't draft them. Also, here's another law that you could not. They were not subject to the jurisdiction of treason. You have to be a U.S. citizen to get charged with treason.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, you're probably saying, well, this is a little flaky, Carrie. It seems a little flaky. The guy who wrote this passage in the 14th Amendment specifically said this. Therefore, this is what he meant. And so I ask you, Brian, and I ask everybody who's listening today, should we be looking at law that is written by a certain person and saying, hey, Carrie, it's written as I understand it, and we must interpret it the way it's written, even though there is a documented history that the author, the person who actually wrote it, meant something the opposite or totally different than the way you understand it today? Should we be doing it as we understand it today, or should we be interpreting law as it was intended to be interpreted by the actual person who wrote it, especially when we have written documentation with clarification on what he meant by that?
Absolutely.
So
it is interpreted as he wrote it.
Right.
To be interpreted.
Because if you don't, now we have a living, breathing document.
Yeah, you're changing it all up.
So.
Not only that, but I'm just thinking about this. If you break the law by jumping the border, you've now committed a felony. You're now a criminal, be charged.
Well, they're not going to be charged because not subject to jurisdiction. Just kidding.
And say while you're locked up, waiting for and by the way, Donald Trump, no more catch and release, because we now have places to hold illegals in tent cities on the border. So as you're being held in a tent city on the border, waiting for your trial to see if you're deported or not, you are subject to the jurisdiction, meaning you will go to court. If you have a baby, so you have a baby. That don't make no never mind. You're still going to go to court. Mm-hmm. You broke the law. You jumped the border. If the judge agrees that you should get asylum, okay, that's a whole nother case.
Okay.
But if he says that no, this doesn't qualify for asylum, you're going back because you came here illegally. Your child cannot be.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Be a citizen.
Right, that would make sense. So I guess, and also somebody else pointed this out. I think this might be a little flaky, but I like the debate. They pointed out that jurisdiction applies to people who has sole allegiance to the United States. It sounds a little flaky to me, but if somebody were to rewrite the 14th Amendment or amend it in some way, I would like to see that exact language. And I'm actually a little bit disappointed that Senator Howard at the time didn't think to put that. But what that would mean is if you just jump the border and you say, my allegiance is with America, but also since I'm a Mexican citizen, I'm subject to them, and also I have some allegiance with them too. I would say, yeah, you're not eligible to have a child that would then have birthright citizenship.
Port of entry. If you go anywhere else seeking asylum other than the port of entry, you should be denied and sent back.
It should be automatic.
Automatic.
It should be automatic that I don't care if you came from a place where they're just literally genociding whatever. You know how to do it. You know where to go.
Port of entry.
Don't be pulling this. I just had to get out of there. Well, you know where to go. You know where to go. Come on.
Take the street. Right there at the port of entry.
I would say denied immediately. Or you could simply say, I would love to grant you asylum. I would love it. And I think you'll get it. But this isn't the place.
Right.
So you need to go ahead and go back out.
So if you hadn't seen it this week, Donald Trump gave a speech on immigration.
Very controversial.
It was phenomenal. It was incredible. It was excellent. I was scoping while he was doing it, and I got low numbers because Donald Trump was giving a speech as we started the show tonight. I'm just saying, a lot of people, So this is Donald Trump. This is just 24 seconds of his speech on immigration. Here's Donald Trump.
Illegal immigration affects the lives of all Americans. Illegal immigration hurts American workers, burdens American taxpayers, and undermines public safety and places enormous strain on our local schools, hospitals, and communities in general, taking precious resources away from the poorest Americans who need them most.
And now the black exit from the Democrat Party, they are saying now that the Democrat Party is throwing away the black vote in the hopes of tricking the Latino vote. Literally not caring about the black vote in the sense that illegal immigration will destroy black vote and the inner cities. And
I think they're feeling that. I think that's the thing that's making the Blexit happen.
Right. And even Candace Owens gave a whole speech. She's talked about LBJ. We've talked about LBJ, but she goes into depth about LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, the New Society, the great hope of whatever. No. That was literally to rip apart black families, to reward single mothers, to reward women who have children to not marry because you can find your daddy or you can find your money in the government. And that's what the government will do. Inner cities, poor and wretched, just awful that the core nucleus of the family just ripped apart, and you get this welfare in the inner cities, and it's just really, really bad. The education, inner cities, really, really bad. And the Democrats run those cities, i.e. Chicago, Los Angeles, former Detroit, However, Detroit's making a little bit of a turnaround here.
Well, any kind of manufacturing center will under Trump.
I was going to say Mexico. Michigan making a little bit of a turnaround and leaning more towards being controlled in the legislature by Republicans.
Good.
Which brings that state up. You just got to keep in mind that don't let the Democrats back in there.
Right.
So here's the GOP ad. GOP has a new ad. Donald Trump, Don Jr. tweeted it out. Remember that illegal who came over here and point blank, bloodily, just brutally, point blank shot a cop. Was shooting at cops. I think it was a gas station.
Oh, like the sheriff and all that?
Right.
I didn't remember that he was an illegal immigrant. I didn't even remember that.
Laughing in court.
I think I do remember that.
The bad dude that laughing in court. Okay.
This guy was literally
saying, I wish I'm going to get out, I'm going to kill more.
What I'm
I
saying
wish I could have killed
that
more.
If you've ever saw evil in your lifetime, I mean, like Satan took somebody under their wing and just made somebody a true bona fide antichrist. It was that guy.
Oh,
that guy was so bad.
Without a doubt. So, the GOP has made this new ad, and check this out.
The 7,000 migrant caravan crossing Mexico, marching toward our border. Dangerous illegal criminals like cop killer Luis Bracamontes don't care about our laws.
The only thing that I regret is that I just killed two.
Cannot allow this invasion. The migrant caravan must be stopped. President Trump and his allies will protect our border and keep our families safe. America's future depends on you. Stop the caravan. Vote Republican.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Look, I'm just saying Donald Trump, and people are saying Donald Trump hijacked the Republican Party and hijacked the voters. Yeah.
Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
He did it, and he did it. I mean, he did it in the right way. That's what we wanted. We wanted our party back.
I think that's what the point of politics is, right? I mean, what do you mean by hijacking? I mean, you got to get people to vote for you, and if he got all the Republicans to vote for him, and you want to call that hijacking, then I'm like, more power to him.
Right, and this, I cannot forget about this. You want to talk about the Democrat Party and the new ideas. This is this week. Hillary Clinton, in an interview, for those of you audio only, in an interview up on stage with another white woman, and the woman asks her about, here, I'll just play it. We'll just play it.
Or whatever, you know, that's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and feel free.
Oh, I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kicked him in the shins?
She said, what do you think about Cory Booker when he said kicked him in the shins?
Essentially, start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done.
She's laughing.
You know, Hillary.
I cracked a funny one. I cracked a funny one, y'all. They all look alike.
Oh man, that's so sad.
This is your Democrat Party.
Wow.
And then you got the Democrat Party supporters. This is the CNN supporting the Democrat Party. Don Lemon and Cuomo. Yeah. Whose brother Andrew Cuomo is governor of New York, the Democrat. What? So
this right here is this duo here is the dream team of just hateful, dishonest, lying, fake news is what this is. Propaganda. This is a propaganda of the worst kind.
Keep thinking that the biggest terror threat is something else. Some people who are marching, towards the border like it's imminent. And when the last time they did this, a couple hundred people came, and they, most of them did get into the country. So we have to stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them. There is no travel ban on them. There is no ban on, they have the Muslim ban. There is no white guy ban. So what do we do about that?
How is Chris not interrupting him? He's complicit in that. Like, if I ever get a chance to meet Don Lemon, I'm going to go right up to him and say, I'm a white man. You said something needs to be done about white men in America. Well, I'm a white man. What are you going to do about it? I would literally say that to his face and demand an answer for it.
Well, people were demanding answers after he made such a racist statement. So he came back out and he said, "Okay, let me clarify what I said, and let me back." Does he backtrack it?
I also want to talk about some uncomfortable truth. The truth about who really carries out domestic terror attacks in this country. Earlier this week, I made some comments about that in a conversation with Chris.
A lie.
I said that the biggest terror threat in this country comes from radicals on the far right, primarily white men.
That's a lie.
That angered some people.
Yeah, because it's a lie.
So let's put emotion
and it's
aside
racist.
and look at the cold, hard facts. The evidence is overwhelming.
No, it's not.
A recent report from the Government Accountability Office shows that. Even though more people died in attacks connected to Islamic extremists, the vast majority of deadly attacks in
So
this
you're
country
more likely
from
to be killed
2001
by
to
an Islamic
2016 were carried out by far.
What, Kerry?
He said more people died under Islamic extremism. He's literally he would agree with me if I were to say, so you're more likely to be killed in a terrorist attack by an Islamic extremist. He would have no choice. The numbers support me. So what the hell is he talking about?
Right, violent extremists.
Where?
The Washington Post, in writing about this today, cites a 2017 report from the Nation Institute's Investigative Fund.
Oh, I'm sure that's
far-right plots
balanced.
And attacks.
Far-right plots and attacks.
False
Kerry.
flags.
False flags.
Yeah, probably false
outnumber
flags.
Islamist incidents by almost 2 to 1.
Well, hold on a second. Stop right there. So it outnumbers 2 to 1, but how much do white people in general outnumber Islamic people in America?
Oh, probably 50 to 1.
It might be 100 to 1. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, but it might be as much as 100 to 1. And you're saying only 2 to 1?
But you're including plots and...
Yeah, not just terrorist attack, but somebody somebody plotted. And by the way, we know Chris Cornell, who was the supposed plotting terrorist in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He was going to plot, or he was plotting, to shoot up Capitol Hill, probably similar to the way Scalise did. And it was only for Islam. There was no right-left political to it.
He had one friend.
Yeah, his one friend. And before that one friend, he had 0 friends.
Right.
An FBI agent befriended him at a mosque, or maybe even invited him to a mosque. The FBI radicalized this guy.
Yeah, the dad said that I was worried about this new friend who was radicalizing him in Islam.
Yeah.
He wouldn't stop talking about Islam.
And the I don't know if you call them imams or whatever they call them.
Yeah, imams.
At the mosque.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know who either of these guys were, but we don't preach that stuff here. They literally said, this is news to us. We don't preach Islamic extremism here at all. We don't do any of that here. And I believe them. I think the FBI basically used this guy as a false flag. And even though he was white, that's another thing. How many white extremists who either plot or pull off terrorist attacks do it for Islam? Because that's what Chris Cornell did.
Yeah.
Which side of the ledger does that fall on, Mr. Racist Don Lemon? God, 2 to 1. They outnumber him 2 to 1. Yet I'm still more likely to die in a terrorist attack by an Islamic extremist and not a white man. So Don Lemon is a proven, demonstrable racist, total racist. He needs to be taken. The fact that CNN will not fire him just shows you that is a racist, extremist organization, a hate group. CNN is now a hate group who uses dishonest lies in order to divide America by race. And it's as simple as that. I think it's disgusting.
So, white Americans, they consider white Americans as 2014. 77% of the population is white Americans.
Okay.
According to Pew former estimates in 2017, there were 3.4 million Muslims.
Which we don't know if those are white or black or whatever color Muslims. We don't know. That's just total.
1.1%
is what?
Muslim.
Okay.
Of total U.S. population, 1% is Muslim.
So
Muslim,
about
white percent, 77% white.
So about 40 times more white people than Muslims. So even though there's 40 times more white people in America than Muslims, white extremism only outnumbers Muslim extremism, and that's only if you include plots.
Thought process, thought police, and thought process.
If you bust somebody for thinking about performing an extreme act, that counts.
Right, that definitely counts.
So that just goes to show you that Don Lemon is a liar. He is wrong. The stats prove that he's wrong. And he's wrong and he's lying because he's so racist he can't stop himself. That's really what it boils down to here, folks.
Right. No, and RASSMUSSEN reports 2nd November 18. I guess that was yesterday.
Somebody said, no, it's 70 more. I rounded up to 2%. So if it's 2% Muslim and 80% and round up to 80%, you're right. It's probably closer to 50 or 60 times more.
But you're doing a very conservative.
Oh, I'm going as conservative as possible.
Yeah.
So I say if there's 80% white and 2% Muslim, that's about 40% difference there.
Right.
40 times.
So RASSMUSSEN reports yesterday Donald Trump's approval rating hits a 51% approval rating with Donald Trump. And Mike Pence on Fox Business News, she poses the question to him about Barack Hussein Obama.
We're setting one record after another, and I think the American people see that, and it's the reason why.
And that's because of you guys and not because of President Obama's policies.
Look, I know the last president is trying to take a little credit for a growing economy. If the economy was growing under President Obama, I think almost nobody noticed.
Wow.
From the moment that this election was called 2 years ago, you saw confidence come back. You've seen investment come back, jobs coming back. The president added to that a historic rollback of regulation, unleashing American energy, historic tax relief for working families, for small businesses. I mean, we've been essentially unleashing the American economy.
Unleashing.
Yeah, it's true, 100% true, and I really feel that that everything he said there was 100% true. That it's just the confidence is back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know we didn't get much about and talk much about James O'Keefe's videos, but there are some now videos, undercover videos. Beto O'Rourke's campaign it
was dead in the water. It was dead on arrival from day one.
But the campaign, it has violated campaign law and should be prosecuted because it is a violation of campaign law to use campaign funds to get illegal migrants and pay their way into a church that is willing to accept them in the state of Missouri or whatever they're going, to help get them there or buy them stuff, whatever they need, buy them food and clothing, and literally take care of illegal immigrants with campaign campaign money.
I have some close friends who are movers and shakers in the MAGA movement who were not too happy about that particular video coming out from Project Veritas because it looks like they're so compassionate and that they're helping out these people that are, struggling to walk their way 2,000 miles up to the border. And for Project Veritas to hone in on that as being the problem with Beto O'Rourke seemed to them to be something that would backfire. However, if it's specifically illegal...
Oh, yeah. It's campaign finance laws.
Not only that, but if you look at the polls, the thing that is really winning for the MAGA movement is the concern about the border security, about the caravan coming up. So just the fact that, sure, it looks compassionate, and sure, it looks like if you attack that, it might be problematic as far as, where is your heart? That kind of stuff. It also exposes the fact that there is a caravan coming up, and guess who's really trying to make that happen?
Democrats.
Not only encourage it and welcome it, which we don't want, but also lead to more of them because it will encourage that kind of behavior into the future.
It's lawless. It is lawlessness.
Right.
And the average, everyday, John Q, any day, anytime USA American, law and order is what we're built on. We are built on law and order. People in middle America, you cut in front of them in line at the grocery store or the bank. You drive up the side of the road, the curb.
Try to jump the line at Kings Island. You will be out of there.
Oh, my goodness.
You may be banned for life.
Yeah, if you jump line at a roller coaster ride.
Zero tolerance.
However, when I was in Italy, man, you're waiting in line to go up the ski lift. You're getting ready. You're waiting for all those little bastards. Man, they'll run over your skis and they'll cut in front of you. There's no law when it's waiting in line.
I go skiing every year. I go to all these places all over the country to ski every year. And Brian's absolutely right. There is no laws whatsoever on the ski slope. It is a free-for-all.
So Andrew Gillum exposed by staffers in undercover video. This is an effed up state and refers to white people as crackers.
Well, yeah, that's a problem.
And Beto O'Rourke has another issue. They found this out. Beto O'Rourke has been touting himself as I don't take super PACs and I don't pay for advisors and
but he's raised almost $100 million.
Right. I don't pay for any of this stuff. I'm here for you, the people, and I'm just like JFK. Look at me. Everybody's saying I look like JFK, and I'll be the next president, even if I lose this against...
If I were his wife, I would say, listen, you do whatever you need to do, but you better put a lockbox on 10 million of that. 10 million.
Yeah.
I can
don't spend it all. You can keep it.
Right.
And stop drinking all those double soy, double protein lattes. You can stay away from that.
Yeah.
So Beto O'Rourke this week exposed spending $18 million that he swore to his supporters he would never do. Filings from the FEC, first reported by Fox News Wednesday this week, show that O'Rourke's campaign has been paying consulting firms and strategies media in the last quarter of this campaign. This is the same guy that goes to California to raise millions and millions of dollars for a campaign he's running in Texas, which I think that should be a violation of campaign laws.
You would think, but there's something dirty, I think, about somebody that's supposedly representing a certain population of people, a very limited population, getting showered with a tsunami of money from outside of his constituency.
You can't raise money from your own constituents, so you go to another wretched, awfully run Democrat city.
If money translates into votes, and in some cases, I would say most cases it does, and in some cases maybe not, it seems like Beto O'Rourke is a representative of California.
Right.
Who's going to serve out of Texas.
Which is not,
that's not really the intent. But there's a safeguard, and that is the will of the people. I think that if the constituency says, hey, I like this Beto O'Rourke guy, but it kind of feels like the only reason he's going to win is because California wants him to be our representative. Oh, crap. I'm going to go ahead and vote for the other guy.
Well, not only that, but that can only happen a few times to where the rich fat cats will say, this strategy isn't working and I'm losing all my money.
Yes.
So we got to send a message home to them.
I'll tell you what, I think that's the most understated thing in all of this. This money isn't just coming from a money tree. Somebody's writing very large checks, and those people don't think, poor people think this, and for the longest time I believe this because I grew up poor myself, is that, man, if I was rich, I'd be just doing whatever, I'd be giving it to my friends, and we'd be partying. Well, guess what? That's why we're poor.
Right.
So rich people are like, this money has to translate to something productive.
Not only that, but the other third parties, I really got to give you a hand. A couple of the third parties are now starting to either back off or, like in Montana. Dude, Montana's down. It's shutting this down all over. Republicans got Montana.
That would be big because they love Tester. They love him.
Key Senate race rocked as Libertarian quits and unites with the GOP against the Democrat.
Rosendale.
Yes.
That's going to be big because...
the U.S. Senate, for the Senate.
Have you seen Tester? I mean, he's one of these people that the good old boys are like, oh, my boy. Dirt farmer. He's literally
that's the guy you were telling me about.
He's the dirt farmer.
So apparently Tester sent out a really dirty mailer to try and raise money on a lie and steal votes away from the GOP. And this libertarian who doesn't have a shot saw it and said, you know what? I'm going against what he refers to as dark money.
Okay.
I'm going against it, and I'm throwing all my support behind a Republican.
You know, our mayor is a Democrat.
Oh, yeah. He's a wretched, awful dude.
I met him. The guy seems so corrupt. Yeah. So corrupt. He's like a good old boy, and I don't know, man. I feel like Tester reminds me a lot of our Democrat mayor, where he's the good old boy that all the good old boys like, but at the end of the day, he's only there because something's going wrong behind closed doors. There's smoke-filled rooms, there's smoking cigars.
So real quick, here are the Democrat ideas. Florida Democrat compares U.S. political climate to pre-genocide Rwanda.
Wow.
Star actor warns of blood in the streets if Republicans hold power. Long shot Senate bids close the gap, tighten the polls as midterm campaign enters final week. Tom Steiner runs Facebook ad comparing President Trump to Saddam Hussein.
So dumb.
Democrats turn on each other. This is about Claire McCaskill. Claire McCaskill trashes Warren and Bernie in Fox interview, attempting to look moderate after she got called out by...
If she was really like that, she should run as a Republican.
Right. Tammy Bruce, who used to be the president of NARAL, or now, was a former Democrat, does have a wife, which she announced that. I never knew that at all about her, but okay, so she's LGBTQ.
Okay.
Very intelligent, and I think cute. But she'd hate me for saying that. You know, I'd see a lot of
you
trouble.
ain't my type.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Tammy Bruce blasts desperate, unfair claim that Trump radicalized more people than ISIS.
Oh, that's terrible.
That was by that lunatic on CNN saying that Trump radicalized more people than ISIS.
And that's just because one guy was basically the patsy for whatever Democrat false flag was created with all those plastic fake pipe bombs, the toy bombs with the toy clocks on them. So,
right.
So now they're saying, oh, everybody's radicalized. No, one guy was hired for a lot of money by the Dems to make a bunch of toy bombs.
Right, and media ignores Democrat connections to Jew hater Louis Farrakhan, whose Twitter account will not be Twitter or Facebook, either one.
It's Twitter
will not be removed. Although Laura Loomer, a bona fide Jew, Laura Loomer is banned from Twitter until after the election.
Specifically until after the election.
Yes.
You know they were like, okay, how many days until the election?
Laura Loomer, a friend of ours and a new news media, if you will, banned from Twitter until the day after the election.
Yeah, and she's not the only one. There's several prominent big Twitter accounts who are pro-Trump, MAGA, whatever, who are serving suspensions that end right after the election or right at the election. And it's just so transparent. Who gets a 3-day suspension? Oh, how many days is it until election? Oh, it's 3 days. Oh, isn't that convenient?
And Democrats finally admit, Democrats admit, the Kavanaugh thing, that witch hunt, damn it, that backfired. That was, man.
We knew that.
We played that wrong. We played it wrong.
The day it came out, I was like, this ain't going to work.
And again, if you're tuning in just now at the very beginning of the show, breaking news, 2 of the Kavanaugh accusers admit that they lied.
They are going to prison.
This reported by Washington Times. I guess Washington Times is better than the Washington Post.
Right. Some might say that they might even be slightly right-leaning, maybe even fair, possibly.
Wow. Fastest 3 hours you're going to spend with anybody, anywhere, anytime, folks. Lots of information. Great commentary. Please share this with your friends and your family. Everywhere. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and the YouTubes.
Yep. Don't forget patreon.com/SmithRadio, SMYTHRADIO. We would love to see you in our Telegram group. It's like a mega party every single day.
And if you need any information, just go to Smith Radio, SMYT, SmithRadio.com. It's all there.
All right. See you guys next week.
Peace out.
Power. What kind of power? Unfathomable. It's without fathom.